latest episode of Real Talk. It's a show that I normally do with my editor and co-host John Bristol, but every once in a while we like to have a guest host, and today is a special
Whoop, whoop.
occasion because I am a child of the 70s. I love the movies of the 70s, and I was talking to my friend Cam Sully over here, and I
Thank you,
said I
buddy.
would love to talk about not only the movies of the 70s, but two specifically. Two of my favorite movies growing up, and they're still my favorite movies now that I am grown up, are The Deep, written by Peter Benchley, who also wrote Jaws, and
That's right.
Close Encounters of the Third Kind, written and directed by the great Steven Spielberg. So, without further ado, I want to introduce my guest host, Cam Sully. How are you?
Hey, buddy. Thank you so much. I'm just looking forward to this. It's like no shortage of collaborations here.
Oh yeah. I've been on your show. On your show, we talked about Escape from New York, another great movie of the 70s.
Yeah, the Snake Plissken saga, and it was just very eye-opening to see just how just so many movies just aged like a fine wine.
Yeah, you know what's funny? Like, I brought this up in several other shows, and I still say it holds true now. Gene Siskel, for the younger viewers, he was a movie critic that's no longer around. He used to be Siskel and Ebert. He made a great comment. He said the last great movie was written in the 70s. And Roger Ebert said, "What do you mean?" He goes, "Back then there was no such thing as CGI, so directors and writers had to rely on character development and they had to rely on a good story. They didn't have to rely on, like, let's see how many explosions we can get in this movie. Let's see how many action adventure scenes." It was more about like character development. And I think the movies we're going to talk about has a lot of both. I think they have a lot of adventure, but also the character development is great. I love the story with Roy Neary, who's played by Richard Dreyfuss, where he gets all these. He has a close encounter of the third kind, which is he sees a UFO, and then slowly thinks he's losing his mind, but really they're giving him clues where they're going to be, so he can be there to meet them.
Right.
And The Deep is the same thing. It's like it starts off as a great action movie, but there's such a great chemistry between Jacqueline Bisset and Nick Nolte, and they're diving on the wreck of a ship, and they discover some not only gold, but they also discover little ampules of morphine. And then, of course, the drug dealers come in, and there's Robert Shaw, who was known, well, he was very popular back then, but he just got out of the movie Jaws. He played Quint. Then he was also in another great movie, which was 1976, called Black Sunday. That was another great movie. But the three of them, great character development. They played off each other very well. And before we get into these movies, I want to talk about the top 10 movies of 1977. These movies are probably the top 10 of all time for somebody's list, but this is just one year. Number one was Star Wars. Number two was Close Encounters of the Third Kind. Number three, Saturday Night Fever. Number four was Smokey and the Bandit. Number five was The Goodbye Girl. Number six was In Search of Noah's Ark, which I never heard of that one, but I'm sure for number six, it had to be pretty good. Then number seven, which I think is funny. Remember Oh God with John Denver and George Burns? They made a couple sequels with that.
I think I did. Yeah.
Oh yeah. Well, George Burns, I'm sure you know who he is. Say goodnight, Gracie. Good night, Gracie. This is it's just to let people know I have 20 years on him and Cam Sully, so I know some of my memories a little bit more. I remember more things from that era than he does. But he's going to bring in the younger crowd.
Yeah.
Number 8 was A Bridge Too Far. That's a good movie. And then number 9 of all time for 1977 was The Deep. And then number 10 was James Bond, The Spy Who Loved Me. So the top 10 list was a list of great movies. And you really don't see, that many great movies in one year, or I don't anyway.
Yeah, Bridge Too Far especially is very intense.
Yeah,
there's something for everybody in this year. It's just very eye-opening. There's some obscure ones like Sudden Death, Golden Rendezvous, Gogol 13, The Pack, which is an animal attack movie, The Baron. But I got to praise, a lot of the ones you mentioned, as well as Suspiria.
Yes. I love Dario Argento. He is. I love the Italian horror genre in general. I love him, Bava. Who's the other one that I like? Lucio Fulci. There's so many great movies, and so I did know that Suspiria came out in that year, and it's, from what I heard, I think I heard correctly. Didn't Argento just release something recently? Is that true?
Yeah.
He's still Fulci. Unfortunately, I think I told you on your show. I had a chance to meet Fulci and Argento. And
Oh,
unfortunately, I
lovely.
didn't get a picture with them. I'm so angry with myself because it was my fault. I could have. I just said, you know what? Don't worry about it. They'll be around next year. And then unfortunately, they never came back. And then Fulci died anyway. I don't think Argento came in
Ah,
any more conventions. So yeah, that would have been two
so
great
close.
pictures to add to my to add to my collection.
Yeah, there's basically something for everybody in this particular year. There's the Sentinel, which is a Empire Pictures movie. There's
Hmm.
Seven Notes in Black, which is a kind of a cult favorite giallo movie that's been reevaluated. It's a
Yeah.
Japanese horror movie called House. There's Shockwaves, which is a more obscure zombie adventure with Peter Cushing. Nightmare in Blood, which is a retro movie I just bought. The Psychic, also known as Murder to the Tune of the Seven Black Notes, and uh, Crazy Desires of a Murderer, and George Romero's Martin.
Oh yeah. Yep. We know, I like back then they had the exploitation movies of the 70s. Around that time, you could see the Grindhouse movies. I love the Grindhouse movies. I have
The Car.
yes, that with James Brolin. That is another one of
It
my
was just
all-time
on
favorites.
Svengoolie a few weeks ago.
Yeah. You know what's funny is it's such a great, it's sort of similar to Duel, where the whole, I mean, this one's a little bit different. I'm not going to give it away. If you haven't seen it by now, then, but it's like similar to Duel, where the truck's chasing them. But in this one, you actually know who's chasing James Brolin, and who I forgot who played his wife. It was Margot Kidder, or was it?
Probably.
Yeah, but that I love that movie. That's another one, and I think it was because back then, people who don't know
Kyle Richards, I think, actually.
who was it.
Kyle Richards, I think.
No, no,
Or
saying who
no,
played his wife.
Kathleen Lloyd, I think.
No, I'm saying who played his wife in the movie. I thought it was Margot Kidder, but
I'm just looking up who's the main character.
oh, James Brolin was the main actor. I'm not sure what the
Okay,
name was.
so uh, yeah, Kyle Richards.
Oh, okay. Oh, Kyle Richards.
Mhm.
Oh,
Close enough. Oh, good.
yeah, no, but so yeah, she was Kyle Richards was the daughter because she played her
Oh,
sister.
okay, so
Yeah,
Kim Richards then.
Kim Richards. Well, that no, Kim Richards is Kyle Richards' sister. Kyle Richards played in Halloween, the first one. She played the friend of the neighbor that Jamie Lee Curtis was babysitting, and then recently she's in all these reality shows. I think the Celebrity
Yeah.
Housewives or something like that. But yeah, she played. I forgot that she was in that movie. Cause
Hmm.
I was a huge fan of Kim Richards. She, as you know, John Carpenter's
Yep.
Assault on Precinct 13, and then I love another movie that she played, Tough Turf. That's when she was a little bit older.
Yep.
Yeah. But anyway, so there's so many great movies. I'm sure we're gonna go off on plenty of tangents. But for now, which one would you rather talk about? Which one would you like to start off with? The Deep or Close Encounters? Which one do you like better, and why?
It's a good question. Both very entertaining movies. The Deep's kind of a fun, slow burn kind of
Yeah.
taut movie. Close Encounters is also very open-minded. Man.
Well, let's start with the Deep. Now, the reason I
Alright.
want to start with the Deep then is I'm just coming back recording this show from a cruise from Bermuda. So and that's where they filmed the movie. That's where the movie is based in. And
Mhm.
so the first day we got to Bermuda, my wife and I rented a taxi. They took us to all the places where they filmed the movie, and I have tons of pictures. So I I had the Deep on my mind, but then a couple years ago I was in Wyoming at Devil's Tower for the same reason. Not because of that, but I happened to be there, and I said, Close Encounters is another one of my favorite movies. So I got the chance to visit places where they filmed those scenes. So yeah, we'll start with the Deep. The move. Well, first of all, I still got it. Let's see. And I've been reading this too. Inside the Deep. It's the making of the movie. So the movie was released on June 17th, 1977. The budget, which I think is hilarious, because now they don't even make movies with camcorders for this much. $9 million was their budget. They all in all, they grossed over $100 million, but that year it was the 8th highest grossing film with $47.3 million. So imagine that. That would be considered a flop at $47.3 million. They'd be like, I think the Solo movie made maybe like 900 million. You're like, oh, we're not making any more Star Wars. They're flopping now. And this makes 47.3 million, had the 8th highest grossing film of 77.
Right?
But so for people,
unbelievable budget.
oh, I know, and it's funny. So I'm rereading those books I have are the originals. I bought these, and I'm still, and I kept these. But so I'm rereading the making of the deep, because I'm interested in the things that they had to go through and the people they wanted to get. So originally, they, like, for people that don't know, it was written by Peter Benchley, who wrote Jaws. So after Jaws was the highest grossing movie of all time in 1975 until Star Wars came out that in 77. But Peter Benchley in 1976 says, well, I'm writing a new book. Columbia Pictures bought the rights to the book, he wasn't even done with the book yet. So they said, we're going to buy it. So they were already casting the film before he even had anything written. So he was in the process of getting it done. So they ended up with Robert Shaw, Nick Nolte, and Jacqueline Bisset, which I think are three great choices, because originally they didn't want Nick Nolte because they said he was a TV star at the time. The only thing he did was Rich Man, Poor Man. They said nobody cares about TV. This is a day before, either a TV star or a movie star. So they're like, nobody's going to care. And then Jacqueline Bisset, at first, originally, she was popular. She was in Bullet, which was a great movie with Steve McQueen.
Oh, yeah.
And she was in Murder on the Orient Express, the original. Mm-hmm. So she was well known. But originally, they wanted to. They were, believe it or not, I think it's hilarious. I was reading about this. They were doing a beauty contest, and they were having all these hot women come dressed in bikinis, but nobody could act. And finally, they got Jacqueline Bisset because Peter Yates, who directed The Deep, also directed Bullet. And he goes, we got to get her. So at first, she didn't want to do it because she doesn't know how to swim, or didn't know how to swim at the time. And she goes, I really don't want any interest in this movie. And she loved working with Peter Yates, so he finally talked her into it. And they needed the main character, whose name is Romer Treese in the movie and novel. And they finally settled on Robert Shaw. So he was just, I said, coming off of Black Sunday and Jaws, and he was really popular. And there's unfortunately some big egos at the time. Robert Shaw says, well, I'm not going to be in this movie unless my name's on top. And then Jacqueline Bisset, well, my name's got to be on top too. But Nick Nolte said, no. No, we're not going to have any of this, until he met Jacqueline Bisset, and he goes, all right, well, let her have top billing. So there was right off the bat, there was a lot of egos involved. But they finally, and then when they got the script done, they were going to have Peter Benchley write the screenplay. But I don't know if you know the story with Jaws. He wrote the screenplay, and they're like, nah, that's just not going to cut it. So they brought Carl
some script doctors.
Yeah. So they basically did the same thing for him. So he wrote 3 drafts, and they said, we just don't like it. And so they brought in Keenan Wynn, who's he's this, I think Keenan Wynn's son. Keenan Wynn was a huge actor. He's been in the Twilight Zone, but there's so many other things that he's done I can't think of right now. So the two worked on the script together, and Robert Shaw said, because Robert Shaw was a screenwriter as well. He wrote books, he wrote screenplays, and I'm sure most people know he was credited partly with writing the Indianapolis scene in Jaws.
Oh,
yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. So he says, I want to help. So he basically rewrote the Romer Treese character. He says, I'm not really happy with this character. And they said Peter Benchley really had no ego at that time. He's like, okay, whatever, I don't care. Let's just get this made, because they offered him so much money just to buy the book. And he's also they offered him part of the profits too, because after Jaws, they're like, all right, I'll take some of the profits of the movie. Let's see how this is going to do. And so what happened was they were going to originally film in Bermuda, where the film was taking place. And if people who know the story, as I mentioned in the intro, I said people they find morphine, and then these Haitian drug dealers come in to pretend they're glass collectors. They're trying to steal from. So Bermuda said, no, we don't like the way we're being typecast in this. We don't like the way that we're being represented. We're more of a loving country. And they said, well, we really don't care what you think. If we don't, why don't you take our money and we're going to film it. If we film it somewhere else, we're still going to call it Bermuda, so people still have the same representation of Bermuda. So
right,
said, all right, we'll take your money. And
so take it, baby, take it.
Yeah, so they did. And what happened was they were looking for a wreck, because there's the story had to be simplified, because the way they wanted to do it, there was the first movie ever filmed live underwater in the ocean with Panavision. They actually his name is Stan Waterman. He made a camera that was never ever used before, never created until that movie, so that they can film the scenes of the 3 of them underwater.
Oh, sweet.
Yeah. And so, but they said, we got to find a wreck. In the movie, it's called the Goliath. and they said, we got to find our own Goliath. And they found some small wrecks. There's a lot of wrecks in Bermuda, but then this one of the producers said, wait a minute, the British Virgin Islands, there's this ship, it's been down there forever, it's called the Rhone, Rone. So they said, all right, let's check it out. So they went over to the British Virgin Islands, and they were able to get some great footage. So all the underwater scenes were filmed under the British Virgin Islands.
I'm looking at this guy. He's apparently done a bunch of other shark and nature documentaries. Good call on to have guys who have the eye for that.
Yeah, well, it's funny you said that, because he was known. There's a documentary that came out, it was really popular in the 70s, called Black Water, White Death. And that was where they got him from. He was one of the camera operators on that documentary. So, so he was really well known for getting all the underwater footage, and he knew about that wreck, and he brought them over there. So what they did there was they were trying to like film over in British Virgin Islands. While they're doing that, they'd film the land scenes in Bermuda. But there's also a scene where they're being attacked by sharks. And first they were worried that it's going to be, everybody's going to think it's like another Jaws 2, it's going to be another sequel. We don't want anything to do with Jaws. It's a completely different movie. So they're like, we're going to do it, but there's no sharks like that in Bermuda. So the same guy says there's sharks like that off the reef in Australia. So for the shark scenes, they flew to Australia and finished. So they did the land scenes in Bermuda, the underwater scenes on the Rhone, which is the name of the ship for the Goliath, British Virgin Islands, and then they did Australia, the shark scenes. So there was a lot going on. And with movies like that, one of the biggest things is weather. You always have to rely on the weather, because they were promised, Bermuda, the only thing it's like in the winter, it's more like a cloudy summer. And they said it was more like a horrible winter when they got there. There was hurricanes, rain. So they're trying to do whatever they could to keep, because of within budget. And there was just a lot of going back and forth, because all the Columbia picture heads are like, well, I want to see some of the footage. And they didn't want to send the footage, because what happened was they had to film it, then they had to send it through customs, then they had to wait for it to come back. So they're trying to film other things while they're waiting to see if the other ones are coming. And what happened was they came back and it was completely dark. And they said, what the hell are we going to do? Found out somebody made a mistake and they didn't light it correctly. So luckily somebody was able to fix it. So they didn't have to refilm any of the stuff. Except for
just put it for some coloring.
Basically. But Jacqueline Bisset, she had her own body double. She hated swimming. She didn't know how to swim. So they said, well, you're going to have to learn how to swim, if you want to be in the movie. She loved it so much, she made them redo all the scenes with the stunt double. She was, I want people to know that it's me.
Yeah.
And if
dedication, I guess.
It's funny, if you saw the movie, when's the last time you saw the movie?
Probably a few years back. It's on HBO, and the movie channels quite a lot.
What do you remember most about that movie with Jacqueline Bisset?
Definitely just how the caves are lit up, and how we, the viewer, feel just as involved. It's a little slow for today's crowd, but for those who just want cool, just kind of treasure in the Sierra Madre kind of like type of betrayal, just a bunch of thieves, a bunch of other scoundrels all after gold. It's just very suspenseful, especially when they actually come across the treasure that they're seeking.
Yep. Well, from that you are correct in everything you said there, but from what I remember most, especially at 9 years old, is Jacqueline Bisset in that white T-shirt with no bra. And it's
ratings,
funny,
man. That's how they got through it.
No, it's funny because Peter Guber was the producer. That was his first movie he produced, and he said that T-shirt made me a rich man. that was done intentionally. It was so gratuitous, but it was so beautiful.
Yeah.
They knew exactly what they were doing.
They knew what they're doing.
But then they were worried about, because she's very quiet, Nick Nolte's very quiet, and they were afraid that the two wouldn't have chemistry on screen. So I think all in all that all three of the characters had great chemistry playing off each other. And Romer Treese, who's played by Robert Shaw, is actually based on a real character. His name is Teddy Tucker, and he lives in Bermuda, and he was friends with Peter Benchley. and he found a lot of treasures, and he's in the library similar to in the movie with Robert Shaw and Robert Trees, and so he based the character on him. He has like a 3-second role in the film. I never would have known, but I was doing my research. I looked it up, and I rewatched the movie after I came back from Bermuda. I said, "Oh, there he is." So it's got one scene in there, but so the movie was based on sort of on his life. I mean, there wasn't. It was more about, because in the movie there's the Goliath. They're supposed to be diving on one ship, but then there was a huge storm, and then the Goliath, which was a munition ship, rolled over, and so that there's one ship on top of the other one. So they were finding gold and lots of morphine. So, but they had to prove, they found a manifest, and they had to get at least one item from that manifest to show that there's proof of the treasure that's to Providence. Mm-hmm. And I'm sure you know, I mean, I don't think people really care now because the movie came out over 40 years ago. In the movie, Robert Shaw blows up the Goliath, his character, because he doesn't want anybody getting to the morphine and having all the morphine on the streets in New York being sold to young kids. So he blows it up. So, but in the book, which Peter Benchley, I got to make a comment. Peter Benchley is a very depressing author, at least in Jaws and Jaws in the Deep. And Jaws, at the end of the movie, at the end of the book, I'm sorry, the Roy Scheider Brody plays Brody's character, just looks opens his eyes underwater and watches the shark just sink to the bottom. The shark just got so tired from all the barrels, he just got tired, and then when they were making the movie, Peter Benchley found out what Steven Spielberg wanted to do with that, and he says, "There's no way people are gonna believe this. Put an oxygen tank? Come on, nobody's gonna buy that." And he goes, "I had the audience for an hour and 50 minutes. I know what I'm doing. Trust me." And then he said, like, when they watched the movie, there was a standing ovation. People sat down. There's another standing ovation. People sat down again. Then there was a third standing ovation, and then he said, "All right, I'll never ever doubt you again." So that means in the book, Robert Shaw's character, Romer Treese, doesn't find a treasure. He gets killed in the explosion, and that's the end of the book. I love reality endings. Like, I think we talked about this in your show. I said one of my favorite movies is The Mist, with movie Stephen, and I said in the movie where he thinks he's helping his kids out, so he shoots them, and then he tries to kill himself, and there's no more bullets, and then you hear the monster coming, and they're like, "Oh yeah, we're the U.S. government. Just want to let you know we killed all the monsters. Everything's good." It's like, nah.
Right.
So very similar.
Devastating.
Yeah, I usually like down realistic endings, but for some reason, I love the ending of Jaws. I love the ending of Deep, where he finds the gold, throws up, "Hey, David," and it's just I don't know. I guess you have to be in the right kind of mood for the happy ending. I think these two movies did it well. They changed it to the right way to keep audiences happy.
Right. And it's about time. I think we're finally getting to that point where now we can actually be a little more realistic now.
Oh yeah. No, definitely. It's funny because the European movies are so much more realistic. They end so much more on a downer note, because they're not worried about, like, oh, we need the happy couple walking away in the sunset holding hands. It's like, no. There's one movie, I can't remember the name of it, but they did a remake with Kiefer Sutherland and Sandra Bullock. And
The Vanishing.
Yes. And the original, which was, I can't remember.
Not so cheerful.
Yeah, not so cheerful at all. In the American version, "Oh, hi, honey. Sorry you've been in there, but don't worry about it. We got it. You're good." So I think, like you said, we're getting more and more. We're more ready to be able to handle those endings than we were maybe back in the 70s and 80s.
It's not a career ender anymore. Like, what were you thinking?
I know. Because for me, I'd rather go for realism, and if it's not, I mean, I love a good, action thriller, and I love, like, all right, we got this. We did, like I just mentioned, the two perfect examples are Jaws and The Deep. But it's I prefer like, for you, with The Deep. What did what I want to ask you about this? What did you like? Did you like the mix of adventure with characters, or did you wish that there was a little bit more action, less?
I thought it was about right, because it, especially for a movie in this time period, you always have to remind people, is like, hey, this is how certain stuff was made back in this particular time. And it's just also eye-opening to just talk about how just back when adventure movies could be this involving instead of just overthink a lot of how to make just the simplest thing.
Yeah, yeah. And also, I think, I mean, when we get to Close Encounters, we'll talk about the special effects. But back then, they really didn't have all the special effects that they have now. There's
No.
no such thing as CGI, so everything had to be filmed. It wasn't just like, oh, we'll put you in front of a blue screen or a green screen, and then we'll add this in later. Just pretend you're looking up at this, and we'll figure it out later.
Yeah. Like we ever will. Yep.
All right, so
It's also just kind of cool to see how people can be this trusting of this kind of a involving an adventure, because you see so many other people who try to make their career on action adventure movies and it just always seems to backfire.
well, I think it's funny with Peter Benchley is that Jaws was his first novel, huge hit, biggest movie of all time for a couple years until Star Wars came out.
Mm-hmm.
So then, also anything that if this guy wrote a menu for Denny's, they would probably option the rights to it. He was just like, we got to take everything that he ever does. His third movie was The Island, which I read the book. I liked the book. The movie was okay, but it still was very entertaining. I don't know if you
Is that
remember that movie.
1980 with Michael Caine, I think?
That's the one, and it's all about the Bermuda Triangle, where they found out why all these ships and planes are going missing. It's not has nothing to do with supernatural. It's pirates, which was I thought it was an entertaining movie, but then I think that didn't really do as well as the last two. So the Deep did well, but didn't do as well as Jaws. Island did okay, didn't do as well as the Deep. So then after that, he wasn't like the big name that we have to pick up option every novel.
Yeah, who is this Benchley guy? And it seems like from that point on, they just made a bunch of miniseries based on his name.
Yeah, well, there's one called The Beast, which is three guys go on a boat.
Will Peterson, yeah.
Yeah, and go after an octopus this time.
Yeah, I saw that on Sci-Fi quite a bit. Yeah,
Oh yeah,
it was like a NBC two-part big night event.
yeah. I mean, he started writing the same stories, but just now, like if we kept letting
Different
it go,
creature now. And he'd always have a lot of science exposition, and they'd cut it out in the adaptations.
yeah, I gave up. I think I read those three books, and then after that, I sort of gave up on it. But I did watch some of the the miniseries that we mentioned. I just wasn't really didn't follow his career too long after that, because he sort of just kept on regurgitating the same formula, but with different beasts.
You're right. Yeah, different creature of nature.
So for the Deep, let's talk about the cast. We mentioned the three main characters, but they also had so many other great people. Lou Gossett Jr. played the villain. Henry Cloche, he was a great villain, I thought.
Yeah. Just you instantly know where they're at. You know you could run into some trouble, and you're just pretty much just preparing yourself for the various deceit. Because you know there's going to be just something else that just comes up where you're just like, okay.
Yeah. He was just like so calm, cool, and collected. Yes, I'm a glass collector. I'd love to check. They're like, yeah, something's not right. Then they get into all the voodoo stuff.
There you are.
And I can't remember what his name, the actual actor's name is, but I was just reading this the other day in the making of it. There's one guy who plays Cloche's sidekick. He's the one you probably haven't seen. I just saw the movie, so it's really fresh in my head. But Romer Treese's brother, his name is Kevin. His mother always said, take care of your brother. So there's a big scene because he's like a big guy. So he's a big scene where Cloche's henchmen have this big fight, and he breaks his neck. But the guy that played that character was told that he wouldn't have to do any swimming at all. But the actor
lied.
Yeah, well, no. What happened was the actor they got was a former Mr. Universe, and they could not find anybody that looked like him, anybody that had that kind of build that was acting. So they said, "You're gonna have to come down. You're gonna have to learn how to swim very quickly." So what they did was they had this big,
wild.
They had this huge tanks. What they did was, I mentioned they filmed the underwater scenes in British Virgin Islands, but they also had this one of the biggest at that time underwater tank that I think over 100 million gallons of seawater, and they had replica of the Goliath in there as well. And so what they had to do is they had to teach him how to swim. And they filmed some of the diving sequences in there too. So there was, and it was funny because where I was in Bermuda, where the cruise docked, they said, "Oh, yeah, that's where it was, right there." So it was like right there off the dock, and they had these two big tanks, and but I think that's where they filmed the explosion and other things. Like there's a scene where they're sending all the ampules up. So they did some of that there. But they had to make him because they couldn't find somebody that looked just like this guy because they said there's no actor that really has the build of Mr. Universe. So like I said, it was a different time period where the actors, unlike I think we talked about this before. So unlike the only actor who really loves doing his own stunts right now is Tom Cruise, which I'm surprised he get away with, because they invest so much money in these actors and movies. If he gets hurt, you know how many people are out of work? So it's like a good and bad thing. It's like I'd see. I mean, if I was Tom Cruise, and I would love to do all my stunts too. But I remember when Jackie Chan first came to America, he made a movie and he says Americans are way too safety conscious. They're way too careful. And they said, "What do you mean?" He goes, "In my country, I do all my own stunts. Here, oh no, you must sit down, Mr. Chan. You can't be doing this. You're gonna if you get hurt." So.
And then he says years later, "Oh, I don't like how my country doesn't have good safety issues." You know, and these guys are just too close to it.
Yeah, so back then they did have some stunt doubles, and you know what's funny? I was reading because if you remember in every Peter Benchley novel has some kind of animal. So in this one, it was a moray eel. I don't know if you remember.
Yeah, that thing. I wondered how close they got to it just to film it.
No, well, the funny thing is that it was all mechanical. They nicknamed it.
This shows you how much I know about this movie.
Yeah. Well, I said, well, it's so fresh in my head. I mean, I'm reading and Making of the Deep. They brought some girl on that Peter Yates knew, and she made it, and it looked nothing like a moray eel. It didn't move like a moray eel. They said so they had her. They had her watch these. One of the photographers, like this underwater film photographer, sent all these different films to this woman to show how they move, what they look like. So they were able to do like, first the headshot where it came out and it bit closer, but then they'll do another scene where they would like make, I don't even know how they did it because that's what I'm reading now. Is like it looks so realistic where it's weaving in and out. Yeah, that was all mechanical. And that for me, 1977, those were pretty good special effects.
Yeah. And even then, I mean, mechanical is just still bound to be somewhat menacing and enticing.
Oh yeah. And they wanted to make the we'll call Percy the moray eel look even more menacing. So what they did was they had two smaller versions of Robert Shaw and Lou Gossett Jr. Maybe they were
that's like right. Lou Gossett is in this. Yeah. Also
similar to what Spielberg did in Jaws to make the shark look more menacing in the cage. They put a midget for Richard Dreyfuss in the cage to make the shark look more realistic, or not more realistic, bigger.
Bigger than it actually is.
Yeah. So they did the same thing with this with the moray eel. If people, like I said, if you haven't seen the movie by now, definitely go watch it again. Even if you know what's going on, it's still entertaining.
I'm sure there's a Blu-ray of it somewhere.
Oh yeah, I still had it on DVD, but then one day I couldn't find it, so I just rented it, and then after I rented it, I'm like, here's the movie. So
there it is.
Yeah, it was 99 cents on Amazon, so it's not that expensive.
Oh wow. That is a deal. 99 cents.
Do you have anything else you want to talk about with the Deep?
And now that you mentioned Louis Gossett, I definitely, if anyone's a fan of him, I'm not sure why anyone wouldn't be, but definitely if you're going to see any of his performances, definitely see him in this particular movie.
Oh yeah, this is good. He was in was it the Choir Boys as well, or was it wasn't the Choir Boys?
I think he was. Yeah,
that's another great movie. Whereas like he plays a cop. Was Joseph Wambach he was
a very unusual comedy, just showing all these. It's very satirical about these various unprofessional cops, and just it's kind of a tragedy at the same time too.
Well, I'm sure you know the story then. Joseph Wambach, who wrote the book, was a former cop, and most of those stories are from his real life.
Yeah.
And one of my favorite scenes, I don't know why, I mean, I haven't seen the movie probably since the 70s, but I remember this one scene. This guy was like, I'm going to kill myself. I'm going to jump up. And they're like, watch this. Go ahead, jump. Stop being such a pussy. And the guy jumps. He goes, what are you doing? I didn't think he was going to jump. I thought, what?
I was kidding.
I was just kidding. I thought I was using reverse psychology. Yeah. Yeah, no, he's.
Psych.
Yep. Oh, well, one other thing, I drove by there, and the world, not the World Cup. There's what's the sport that's really big in Bermuda? Oh my God, my mind just went blank on this. It's not the World Cup. I'm just thinking that because that's what's going on now. But it's they have the paddle and they hit the ball, whatever it is.
Oh, not pickleball.
Rugby, I think.
Rugby. Okay.
Yes, rugby. Okay. So my taxi driver was taking me by this field. He's like, rugby is the sport everybody goes to. Nobody misses theirs. They actually use it as a vacation. I mean, like a holiday. So they take 3 days off, which I think is coming up either next week or the week after. And so I said, wait, is this field for use for all rugby matches? And he goes, yeah, why? And I said, there's a scene in the Deep where they're at a rugby match. So then I was doing my research. I guess 1976, when that movie was filmed, it was the 75th year of whatever rugby event that was going on, and it was a huge deal. So they took a handheld camera and they filmed the scene with Robert Shaw and Louis Gossett Jr.
Oh, wow.
And he said that was funny. It's like, well, they said what was great is the Bermudians could really care less. There's 3 movie theaters on the whole island. They could care less about movie stars, nothing. But there's a lot of the American tourists are coming up to him, hey, Robert Shaw, this, and they're trying to film. And he said the one good thing is that when people are coming up to Robert Shaw, his character is supposed to be really well known on the island, so they just kept it in there, like, "Hey, how's it going?" So then, but they had to film that scene because it was during a real live match. And what happened was the night before, Robert Shaw says, "Yeah, I'm getting married tomorrow." It's what? Yeah, I'm getting married. You gotta be back in time to film. Yeah. So he almost didn't get back in time to film. They had to, and what happened was it was so loud.
Such a shame that he had to be in one of the weaker Jaws movies. Can you imagine Louis Gossett as in Roy Scheider's sheriff role?
No.
Probably not. He did too good a job. But
yeah. You know what's funny is I always say this because like you hear like all these different actors that tried for the roles, and then you're like, I can't ever picture them. But then that's only because you see who was in the movie and doing the role. But like originally, I think in Jaws they wanted Charlton Heston as Brody, which I could sort of see, but then like Spielberg said, he goes, I don't want anything bigger than the shark. He goes, I don't want some guy who's more well known than the shark. So that's why they picked at the time lesser known actors. Which Roy Scheider was making a lot of good movies. I think that year he came out with a movie called Sorcerer, which is really good.
Yeah, rest in peace, William Friedkin. I cannot believe that. I was so distressed.
We have to do one on The Exorcist, like the whole because.
Oh yeah, trust me.
All right, well let's do it because I don't know if you
the
saw
TV show especially.
Oh yeah, definitely.
That is where the canon ends in my mind. You do part 1, then you do part 3, and then
oh yeah, part 1. Well, it's funny because part 1 and part 3 were both written by William Peter Blatty, and great. I think it was the third one was called Legion, if I'm correct. Part about The Exorcist.
I think so. Yeah, it's so funny how John Borman got involved with it, even though he wasn't a fan of it.
Oh really? That part I didn't know.
Yeah, it's so funny how so many people will just get hired on for stuff that they are not even a fan of, and it's like, well, then why are you involved with this franchise? Are you that in need of a payday?
Well, unless you have people like Michael Caine, which I wish
right.
I would know. I don't know if you know. Here's what he said, and I love this because I would love to have a point in my career if I had a career in the movie state where he goes, I don't really care how bad the movie is. I just go wherever they're filming. He goes, Jaws: The Revenge. They're filming in the Bahamas. That's like a vacation for me in the Bahamas. I don't care how bad the movie is. So imagine getting to a point in your career you could just say, I'm going to the movie. I'm going to film this movie because
this is what we're doing.
Yeah, because where we're filming. It's like, to me, I'm going to take my family. We're going to have a good time. Who gives a shit how bad the movie is?
Right. You just got to pay it forward.
Yep. So yeah, definitely. Because what made me think of The Exorcist, I went to go see Oppenheimer yesterday for the second time.
Oh.
I highly recommend it. It's such a great Chris Nolan has always been a great writer and director to me, and he just gets better and better. I mean, I remember seeing The
Interesting.
Following back in the '90s, and then Memento, and then Inception. It goes
I
on.
like his earlier stuff. I wasn't as keen on some of his previous war movies and sci-fi, but
Yeah,
that's good. It seems to be dominating the box office and really making audiences just have their mind blown. So
yeah.
that's good.
Well, and for people that are interested, it's about the creator of the atomic bomb. It's a
Hmm. And
very
Robert Downey's my sister's always he's my sister saw it and she's like, yeah, he's totally gonna get the award this year.
absolutely. I mean, the cast is unbelievable. You have Robert Downey Jr. You have Gary Oldman playing Harry Truman. You have Emily Blunt. You have Casey Affleck. You have I'm trying to think of like just the people off the top of my head. There's so
So
many
many big A-listers, yeah.
A-listers, but there's also so many great character actors. Like, where do I know this guy from? And you realize he's been in 1,000 movies. Sort of like
Yeah.
Dick Millers of the world.
That would be
Definitely.
a fun random Twitter, Instagram poll. Who's going to be the next Dick Miller of the 2020s?
Well, they even had. Are you a fan of the Warriors?
Yeah,
Right.
I'm a big Walter Hill guy, so yeah.
Right. So James Remar's in it. He's another. He
Mhm.
plays Ajax in the Warriors. For people who don't know,
Yep.
I mean, the
Good
movie's got
old,
everybody, and
good
it's
old freaking Remar.
yep, yeah, and it's funny because the first time I saw it, I said, "Well, I don't know if you follow me on Facebook, but I mean, I interviewed three of the guys from the Warriors, and I became friends with all of them. I
They're
loved,
all just delightful people.
yeah, they are. I mean, just the other day, I went to New York City to Thomas G. Waits, who played Fox on the Warriors. He played Windows in the thing, and we became. He goes, "I want to go." He has an acting school. I said, "Well, I'd love to check out your acting school." He said, "Oh my God, I have the perfect thing for you. I want to have you come to New York City where the acting school is. I want you to do Richard III." So I went down there the other. Yeah, so he is such a cool guy. But the reason I'm bringing this up was I'm also friends with Patchy Ramos, and for people who want to check out these interviews, go to my YouTube channel, Rich Sear, and it's on the Claws,
Yeah.
CLAWS Claws Corner. And I interviewed Thomas G. Waits, who played Fox. I interviewed Apache Ramos, who played one of the orphans, and I also interviewed David Harris, who played Cochise. But the other day,
Sweet.
Apache's like, "Oh man, it's so great to see my fellow warrior in Oppenheimer." So I watched it again. I was like, "Oh wow, I don't even know how I did not even recognize him." But but the movie is extremely accurate. There's not one thing they got wrong. I mean, there's only I won't bring up this movie is so brand new, people that maybe didn't see it yet, but there's like a couple things they got right, but they just left out just a little bit. Other than that, it was I mean, all the way down to like where he meets Truman and what Truman says to him. I mean, it was almost verbatim. It's
That's
a really
good.
really good movie.
There we go, man. See,
Right.
this is why I like just talking about these different kinds of cult movies because you really do get kind of a sense of just why these particular movies have stood the test of time.
Oh yeah. No, I agree with you, and I think that I mean, for going back to his career, I loved the early movies. I loved well, Memento is where he really broke out, Chris Nolan.
Yeah,
But then there's a movie that came out before that called The Following. I don't know if you saw that movie.
yeah. Following 1998, yeah,
Yeah, yeah, I love that movie, and so I've been following
micro
this career,
budget. Yeah,
and I actually liked Inception. A lot of people didn't like it. And I love the Batman
I'll
movie.
take it. Tenet, I can't do, but
Which one? Tenet?
yeah, that ending just didn't rock
Oh,
my boat. But yeah, Inception, I think you can do. I just feel like he's better with mystery than he is at action.
yeah. This one has a little bit of both. Like there's a lot of there's oh yeah, another one is that Matt Damon was in it too, but there's a
Man,
Team
sorry, I
America.
love him. I love me some Paul Greengrass and Matt Damon. It's all good.
But this movie has a lot of action, but it's such a there's so many great characters in this movie, and it just goes back and forth, back and forth. It's over 3 hours long, and you don't even realize how long it is
That
because
says
it's
a
just
lot, though. It's rare that I can see movies that really pull it off. I think Lincoln and L.A. Confidential are good examples
yeah.
of how they make every moment count. And next thing you know, 2.5 hours have gone by,
Hmm.
and you're just like, "Whoa, where did that go?"
Yeah, and this is I think if you see this, you will have the same reaction to this movie that you just did with some of those other movies like LA Confidential. Like, oh wow, it's over already. Uh, but what we'll do is for The Exorcist. I don't know if you know this. They're coming out with a sequel.
Right.
Right. So I saw the
By the
trailer.
Halloween Blumhouse guys. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. And it was just funny because I was watching the trailer. I said, "This is such a complete ripoff. It's so blatant." Then I'll sit here, look. Then I say, "There's only one woman that knows this, remembers this from the past." And then they show, what's her name in real life? It was McNeil was still her name in the movie, but um, anyway, the one who played the mother in the movie is in this one, and
Yep.
you know what's I don't know if you know this about it, because do you go to a lot of the movie conventions?
On occasion, I've been fortunate enough to go to some of the. It's been a minute, but I would go to some of the Texas Frightmare ones. But I definitely prefer some of the more uh, quieter cons where half the proceeds go to a good cause, and you see all these other guys who have been in all movies of all kinds. There's something for everybody.
Yeah, and I agree with that. The reason I'm bringing this up is, have you ever met Linda Blair?
I haven't. How is she?
First time I met her, she was great. I used to do a radio show, and she did a
Oh,
bumper for
sweet.
me. And she goes, "You're listening to Rich Sayre on 1240 WWCO. He really makes my
Ah.
head spin." And she was great. But then over the years, I don't know what happened. She became. I don't want. I don't want to talk about The Exorcist. I don't want anybody to mention that. I save dogs now. Here's my calendar. Buy my calendar. It's like people are not here to buy your calendar. People are here to talk about The Exorcist.
The
It's a
movie that
horror
made
convention.
you.
Nobody. I mean, maybe the people are that care about what you're doing. I think it's a great thing what you're doing, but
It's not why we're here.
this is and the only reason she's there is because of The Exorcist. She's not there because of Night Patrol. She's not there because of what's the other movie? The Blair Bitch Project, which was actually funny.
Which is a spoof. Yeah,
Yeah,
it's
but
some people get so again, it's people who get too close to what they're doing, and it's like, well, that's great and all. You might not be you might be over it, but we're not.
no, exactly. It's like, and if you don't want to talk about it, don't go.
Just say it,
They
but
pay them.
don't.
No, they pay them. They pay these people to come to the conventions. Don't go to the convention. Don't take the paycheck. Just go there and sell your.
So she's kind of like Tom Savini, who isn't like you'll see how he just really doesn't want to. He'll make glances at all the beautiful women who are there, but he just doesn't really care to be there either. And it's always just kind of illuminating because it's just like, well, again, if you don't want to be here, no one is forcing you.
Well, it's funny you say that because I met him in 1990. I remember so clearly, and he was the coolest guy in the world.
Oh,
He's
that's
like,
good.
no, well, there's more to the story. So I met him, and he's like this. He goes, I remember, it's like I always think of the Quentin Tarantino story. This is what he was telling me. He goes, Quentin Tarantino was this guy from a video store. He goes, now anybody who wants to make, I'm gonna help them out. I'm gonna be there because you never know who's gonna be the next Quentin Tarantino. I went 2 years ago. No, yeah, 2 years ago to the Chiller Convention in New Jersey. Like you said, he really could care less of being there. I'm talking to him. He's like, yeah, okay. And I said, well, look, have you on my show. Yeah, check out my Instagram then. Like you could tell he's not. I messaged him and I knew
he's not a people person.
No, not at all. I mean, but he went from, oh yeah, I help out everybody. So you never knew who's going to be the next Quentin Tarantino to like, yeah, go on my Instagram if you really want to talk to me. I'm really not in the mood to talk to you right now. I mean, he didn't word it quite like that, but that was his attitude.
I was getting an autograph from him back in 2016 for $40, and he just was like looking right through me, like I'm not even there. I'm just like, dude, I mean, we can read your body language, and I just regretted just paying that amount of money. It's like, well, too late now, but I already want my money back.
Oh, so you did? You got your money back?
I didn't.
Oh, yeah, no, it's just
refusing, but it's just annoying because, like you say, you just know they can do better.
Yeah, and excuse me, what I mean, why are they even there? You don't have to be there. Nobody's putting a gun to your head. Oh, and the two worst I've met at these. Let's go back a little bit. I'll tell you the two worst, and I'm going to tell you a story of what I think. The two worst, Linda Hamilton, and
how was she?
What was that?
How was she?
Oh, she was a bitch. She just did not want to be there.
Sorry.
She'd care less about being. She'd care less about anybody. She'd be like, "Yeah, let's take the picture." But the worst is, oh my God, Tatum O'Neal. She was a complete beep. Somebody's walking by. He's like just trying to take a picture of his friend. Put the fucking camera down. Take a fucking picture of me. So then I'm like, wow, this is. So I said, all right, let me get a picture with her. I get a picture. Don't stand so fucking close to me. Oh my God.
Oh my word.
She was a bitch. And some of the nicest people
Like
I've
father,
met.
like daughter, I guess.
Well, that's why that's exactly what I said. No one, I wanted to say, no wonder why your dad hates you. no, no one, like I can only imagine what it was like living with John McEnroe, those two together, because he's such a high head too. So when she was
Yeah.
married to John McEnroe for years, I could only imagine the fights they got into. But
Some people just don't know how to be any kind of normal. It's like I can understand if you're in a zone or you only want to see a certain amount of people, like just 10 VIP people
you know,
for the day and call it a day. But yeah, it happens sometimes. And I mean, Linda, I could at least excuse that she, has had some depression and everything and just
yeah,
been overwhelmed. But at the same time, yeah, like I say, it's like you got plenty of time to just say, nope, nope, not going to do it.
yeah. But some of the nicest people I've met are Martin Landau,
Oh,
and another one that was so nice was George Hamilton. And he
wow.
I was talking, no, actually, here's what happened. I was waiting in line. Actually, three of them. Henry Winkler. I'm going to mention those three. Henry Winkler, George Hamilton, Martin Landau. Three huge stars. Everybody, if they don't know them by name, some of the younger people, they're going to say, oh, wait, I've seen him in this. I know this. I remember this. All three of them. And George Hamilton, first of all, was like, um,
I hear he's an angel, so
yeah,
that's good.
well, I was in line. He came up to me to apologize. He goes, I'm so sorry. This is my first convention. I'm having so much fun. He goes, I promise I'll talk to you. I said, no, take your time. But he was, I love this. And he did a bumper for me from the Claus Corner. And then Martin Landau did the same thing. I was like, this, of course I'll do one for you. No problem.
Yeah.
But Henry Winkler, this time I wish I had a show. I didn't have a show at the time. I'm sure he would have done it because he goes, can you hold on for a second? And he went down the line was down the hall. He went and thanked everybody for being so patient and being there for him. He goes,
Oh, see,
yeah,
that's going the extra mile. That's great.
exactly. He is such a and this is why I bring this up. It seems like the nicest people are the ones that don't have anything to prove. They know who they are. They've done everything. They don't have to prove. The ones that are the meanest are that I mentioned are either maybe not, they're on the way
Has-beens
down,
who
or
are
like,
kind
yeah,
of burnt out. Yeah.
yeah, or the up and coming who they think they have something to prove. And it's like the up and coming and the ones that are on the way down. Like I didn't realize about Linda Hamilton. Maybe she was just having a bad day. She wasn't really nasty like Tatum O'Neal was, but you could
Right.
tell she was.
She didn't slap anything out of your hand calling you an asshole, but at the
Yeah,
same time, she's like, you just, again, just seeing it on your face where you're like,
exactly. Like I have zero interest in being here and talking to you. I just wish I can go in a corner and die. I'd have more fun. That's the kind of look I got.
yeah. I'll tell you a good one. So back in 2014, I met, do you know the bald henchman guy from Death Race, Leon the Professional, Nip Tuck, CSI Miami?
Oh yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
What's
Robert Lasardo, an Italian Latino guy.
yeah.
Sweetest man ever. He just, I talked to him for 3 hours and he's like, oh, you don't have to pay me. I'm like, no, I'm going to pay you, buy one of your autographs because gave me a moment of your time. But it was just cool to just see. He was even wondering, what are you guys learning in film school? Oh my God, that's ridiculous. They taught you that? That's not cool. And uh, I was this close to meeting his best friend, Andrew Devoff, who you might know as
Oh
one
yeah.
of Gary
Wishmaster.
Oldman's, yeah, Wishmaster and Gary Oldman's henchman in Air Force One.
Oh yeah.
He had left like 2 hours earlier, but I loved going to that convention because 50% of the proceeds went to a dog charity. There were some other guys who had kind of done a lot of lowbrow, like D-list, like amateur, like sci-fi horror movies who wanted me to like buy their like $30 DVDs, but I was politely just went to the other side of the room. But I ended up just talking at his panel for, again, 3 hours because and the best thing he ever said to me is like talking about filmmakers. He's like, Woody Allen can make wood interesting. That stuck with me. I was like, see, I like it when people who not only want to have an actual conversation, but can dissect all kinds of just social commentary, filmmaking styles, and and it was funny as I was even introducing him to some movies that he had never heard. I was like, oh, I've never seen that movie. I've seen that movie by that filmmaker. I didn't know it was related. I've never heard of that. So it's interesting when some people are so busy working that you forget that they don't necessarily have time to, watch the same material either.
Yeah, no, that is great. And I've met actually met Andrew Devoff years ago. Nicest guy
He's
in the world.
nicest man ever, right?
Yeah, my God, and I love, like you. I forgot all about Air Force One, but yeah, the Wishmaster, the first one anyway, is like such a great movie, and I
Oh
love his
yeah,
character. But he's not. He's from what I remember. I mean, I could be wrong. He speaks at least 6 languages. The guy is extremely intelligent. He was telling me his story.
absolutely.
Yeah, and it's just I could have talked to. I have a picture with him somewhere. This was the days when I had the disposable camera, so it was back in, I want to say, in the
I
'90s.
love those. Oh my god.
Yeah, it's been a long time since I've seen him at a convention, but yeah, I'm so glad that. So you did eventually meet him.
I'm best friends with his social media coordinator, Erica Wright, and uh, last year he wasn't doing any interviews, but he was just like saying, "Hey, you guys have all been patient. I know I haven't been able to give you all some fan mail, so I'll tell you what, I'm going to give you just 20 minutes of a phone call conversation." And Erica gave me a warning: "Hey, in 20 minutes, it's going to be this number calling from LA, and just letting you know." uh, he knows you're a big fan. He's seen some of the work you've done on the podcast. Really likes how you're promoting it. He's going to give you a moment of his time, and I pretty much just was ready. I was like, "Hey, man," I just gave him like 10 different compliments. He's like, "Oh shoot, I didn't know anyone saw that. No, thank you."
Well, it's funny that you say that too, because that's I don't know how many times this happens. Most of these stars, or they have a great body of work, but people come to
Yeah.
see them for like 1 or 2 movies. So I don't know how many times my brother and we used to go together all the time. And I have 2 brothers. We all grew up. My father used to always
Nice.
bring us to the movies, and they'd say like, "I don't know if your kids can handle this. My kids can get them a ticket." So we saw every movie. Like, and then of course, this is the advent of video. So in the late '70s, early '80s, we used to have to go to the theater and just rent anything by the cover. So we saw
Yeah,
everything.
whatever's sold you in
Yeah,
that moment. Yeah,
exactly.
where's the catchphrase?
Yeah. So now when we go to meet these actors, we're like, "Oh, but you were in this one," and the guy will say, "Wow, I didn't think anybody was going to even know." Then they bring out this. I kept this down.
I
I had
thought it
no
went
idea.
straight
Nobody.
to video and it
Yeah,
plays at a
nobody.
festival.
I didn't realize anybody. And then Kim. Actually, it's funny. As you mentioned Kim Richards earlier. Um, there was she's in a movie. I can't remember the name of it, but I have it. It's
Some
about,
other slasher.
well, it's about a racist dog. I'm not kidding. It's like white boy.
Oh, white dog
Yeah, white dog. And she
by
goes,
Samuel Fuller. Yeah.
yeah, she goes, "How the hell do you know that?" She goes, "This is great." She loved it, and she was a really. I mean, I
I
know she
mean,
had
she comes
a lot
from
of
an
issues.
era where if you didn't hear back, you kind of took it personally, like, "Oh man, I must have screwed up. No one's talking about that movie."
Yeah, yeah. Well, it's funny because she goes, I almost completely forgot about that movie. So I just like you, because you know a lot of things about movies. So when you meet all these
So do you,
actors,
my dude. But I'm getting even more tickled by some of your celeb encounters because they kind of remind me of my encounter with Tara Reid, where it's like, I wasn't even where it's just people who are there who just will rudely just walk through lines of people just because they want to get a bite to eat, or even just, I mean, that's why I had to stop going to certain conventions where they wouldn't tell you, that you'd have to wait in certain VIP lines, or you could, but you still have to be standing there. So communication, I think, is key for any convention, and you got to just ultimately decide, do you want to go there or not?
yeah. Well, it's funny you said that, because very recently, the last convention I went to, my friend, she wanted to get a picture with Priscilla Presley. And I said, "Well, I'm not paying full price. I'll
Oh
go half of
wow.
it." Yeah, but it's a great story though, because I said, while you're waiting in line, so I thought it was gonna take forever. I'm gonna go talk to Blue Lou Marini from Blues Bros. I want to get him on my podcast. When I'm talking to him, he goes, "Oh yeah," he gave me his phone number. We're going back and forth. I come back. She already took a picture. So this big guy comes up to me. He goes, "Do you want a picture with Priscilla?" I said, "I do, but I was supposed to take it with my friend Jen, but she got it quicker." And I said, "I just don't have enough money to pay for the whole thing." So I started walking.
Yeah, not
He goes,
today.
"No," but he goes, "All right." He comes back. He goes, "Sir, come here. Priscilla,
Eh,
Priscilla says she wants to take a picture with you for free." I said, "Okay."
whoa.
Yeah, and she was very quiet and didn't say a lot, but she was very nice, because I'm a huge fan of the Naked Gun movies. I love the Naked Gun movies.
Oh yeah, man. But that is cool too when they see out of the side of your eye and just like, "Hey, my manager might not like it, but fuck it." I when you pride fans over whatever your agent says, that speaks volumes. That's cool.
I think one of the one of my favorite stars I've met, and I'm so happy that I probably got one of the last interviews with him ever, Reggie Bannister from the Phantasm franchise.
Oh man.
Right. Yeah. So what happened was,
Yeah, Reggie's
well,
not doing so good health wise, but man.
I got to tell you a story about that because what happened was, I years ago I met him. I met him so many times, like he remembered me not by name, but he's like, oh yeah, you. And then we were talking, but he would talk. He had his Phantasm had one table. He had his own table, and we talked to him. My brother and I talked to him for probably like 45 minutes. Had the best time. So when I got the show, I reached out to him on Facebook, and his wife Gigi kept going back and forth. She goes, "Oh, well, you know what, Reggie, he's busy right now." So I said, "Why is she doing all the talking? I don't get this." And I said, "She's just blowing us off. He's not going to do the interview." And every time we get, "Oh, you know what? Let's do it Tuesday." You know what? Something just came up. So finally, we did the interview. My co-host, he's a co-host for this show, but I do my interview show mostly solo. But he wanted to be on that one. I'm like, "Yeah, go right ahead." So we did the interview, and every time she's like, Reggie, remember Reggie? And I'm like, why is she so overbearing? And it wasn't until after I did the interview I realized that he has is it Alzheimer's or dementia, or is it Parkinson's? He's got one of the three, and he's not doing well at all. But so I probably got one of the last interviews, and I thought she was blowing me off and she was overbearing, but she was actually protecting him because he wasn't feeling well, and she was trying to get him because he couldn't remember when I was asking him a question. You could tell he's staring. After I found out, I watched the interview again. I could tell him like thinking, and then she goes, "No, remember this? Remember you were in a hotel and this happened." So,
it took him a minute, but
yeah,
the dementia you can kind of see is seeping in a bit.
Yeah, but in his prime, he was the nicest, most down-to-earth celebrity. He would talk to anybody about everything, and he was so appreciative that my brother and I knew all the movies that he was in, and we were such huge fans of his work. And so I like when you go to these conventions and the stars. I think that they realize because they're so used to answering the same questions over and over again.
Mm-hmm. And to ask them something different or just acknowledge their talent, that goes the extra mile.
Yep. That's why I love doing my show, because one of the most proudest things I've had. I mean, I don't know how much I know you watched the Sarah Karloff interview. You said
yes,
but
you did delightful.
I have thank you. I have compliments. I mean, I actually made promos out of these, but from Dee Wallace, she was, I've probably done a million of these interviews. I want to thank you for all the research and all the questions. And then Ted Needler played Jesus and Jesus Christ Superstar. He goes, I have to stop this interview. What you're doing is great. This is one of the best interviews. And so I've had so many people off the air too say that. And so that's probably my biggest compliment, because these people that I'm interviewing have been around for 35, 40 years, and they're being so genuine. So I'm not asking them.
You never know where they're going to go in the interview either.
Yeah, well, no, exactly. And I've had the best luck with it. But I mean, the amount of work I put into each show is staggering. Like, I mean, I make sure, like, because I look at different interviews, and it's like, all right, they're asked this all the time. I'm not even going to talk about this. Or I look at my angle because I have so many different experiences of my own. Like, I'm going to put my spin on it and turn it around, and it's gone very well. And the latest one, which I love the luck I have. It's similar to what just happened with Priscilla Presley. Do you know who Constantine is? He was on American Idol. Well, he was. I hate that show. I hate any kind of reality shows. But
yeah,
I met him at Chiller, and I really didn't even care at first. But
Michael
then I was talking
Constantine.
to him. What was that?
The actor Michael Constantine, or
no, his name is Constantine. That's he's sort of like a Madonna, like Constantine. That's it.
Oh, okay. Oh, wow.
But well, it's funny because I met him at Chiller. I'm like, I care less about American Idol, but I just said, I went by and I said, I don't realize that this guy has done so much. I mean, he was in Rock of Ages. He was the main star in that. Then not in the movie, but in the Broadway play. He was in the movie for.
Oh, okay.
Then he did Jesus Christ Superstar. He did all these different things. And I said, wow, you have a really interesting career. I'd love to have you in the show. He goes, oh yeah, let's do this. So we went back and forth. He sort of lost contact with me. Then I saw him again. I said, I refreshed his memory. He goes, oh yeah, Rich, oh, yeah, we got to do the show. All of a sudden, went back and forth, lost contact. So I was in New York last weekend, and I was looking to see a play, and there was something called Mr. Rock and Roll, and I said, what's that about? And the woman said, well, it's about the guy that created the term rock and roll. I said, oh, you mean Alan Freed? She goes, oh, you know who he is? So yeah, he's a DJ from the 50s, the whole pale scheme. She goes, oh, you definitely know. So they're like, yeah, Constantine starts. So, you know what? I'm going to check it out. I'm going to introduce myself once again to Constantine. So when I go to the play, I didn't realize Joey Pantoliano is also in it. I don't know if you know who he is. You would know Joey. They call him Joey Pants. He's been in
Yeah, Joe
Memento.
Pantoliano. Yeah.
Yeah. So he's in Memento, Empire of the Sun. I mean, Bound, so many movies, hundreds of movies. So he was in it. And I met him at Chiller too. So at the end of the play, I'm waiting for them to come out. So I wanted to just introduce myself to Constantine. Joey came out. I said, hey, how's it going? I already met you before. Took a picture. So this woman says, sorry, you're going to have to leave. I said, damn it. I just wanted to introduce myself to Constantine because I was supposed to do an interview. And she goes, hold on, what do you do? And so I talked about who I was. And she goes, well, I'm the writer and producer of this place. She goes, I can set up everything. So I got it set up where I'm going to interview Joey Pants, Constantine, and her.
Man.
So I said, I just love my luck. I just sort of like fall into things.
And take advantage of it. And I'm glad you also just still have fun with it, though, because you'll see so many people have connections galore and they're not even happy of being about someone's manager or what have you. And it's like, oh, come on.
I know. I think sometimes it's funny too. Because I know another girl that does a podcast. And I said, you can get so many. She's this big Star Trek and that type of show fan. She goes on the Star Trek cruises. I said, why don't you get all these guests? They'll gladly do it.
All these other people have been in everything. Yeah.
But I think she's more like her boyfriend said that she's probably more intimidated. That's why she doesn't do it. And I said, you can't just
get him.
But for me, I just take any opportunity and every chance I can get, I make the most out of it. So I've been doing that. And so wherever I go, like meet somebody, oh yeah, I'd love to have you on the show. And then that usually leads to something else.
Ride the tide.
Yeah. So anyway, as I knew we'd go off on a couple of tangents, the other movie I wanted to talk about was 1977, the second highest grossing movie of 1977, Steven Spielberg's Close Encounters of the Third Kind.
If it wasn't going to be Star Wars. Star Wars was number one, so it's cool to know that he still got that money.
Yep. So again, the original copy, and also huge fan. Got the photo novel.
Oh man!
See, got the
some great photos.
Oh yeah. Then got the making of.
Damn, Bob Balaban. I didn't know he did a book on that. I know Lance Henriksen mentioned some funny stories behind the scenes in his biography, but I always love the photo books because half the time they're just kind of extended scenes, deleted scenes, or just promo images that somehow make you feel more complete than when you're watching the movie.
Yeah. No, I agree. This has got to be my all-time favorite. It's like the desktop book. Close.
Holy shit. Oh, wow.
This has got.
You are the mega fan of Close. You're pretty close to Close.
Jon, I'm telling you, Close Encounters in the Deep. And wait, this is probably the creme de la creme. Got the Close Encounters cards.
Yeah, dude, get it. Get it.
Look at the Close Encounters cards.
For those who can't see, that's good, man. That's good.
So, as you can see, I'm a huge fan of the movie, and
I couldn't tell. No.
How old were you? I mean, like I said, we have like a 20-year age.
I was around 12 when I saw it on Good Times Home Video.
Oh my god! Yeah. So, what year was that? I'm curious.
2002, definitely. I got straight into movies. I had plenty of family who wanted to introduce us to all kinds of stuff, whether it was Monty Python or just other crowd pleasing movies. So I saw pretty much most of the various blockbusters, whether it was on TV or just from video stores. And even if I couldn't see it, I found a way to watch them. There's so much stuff that people owe it to themselves to just educate yourself on pop culture, even if you're not a fan of it, just see why people like these movies.
Yeah. Well, when the movie came out in 77, as I mentioned before, I was 9 years old. But when I was, as I mentioned also, my father used to take my brothers and I to almost every movie. So we were huge UFO buffs. Like Dr. J. Allen Hynek, who wrote Project Blue Book, I was reading that book. I was reading all these different things. I was really much into UFOs. And when that movie came out, I could not wait for it to come out. I knew it was coming out, and we were just so excited to see it. And the date it took so long to make because of all the special effects and everything. It was supposed to come out in the summer of 77, but because of all the technicalities and all the money, and
Man.
it came out November 16th, 1970. It had the budget of $19.4 million, but it actually grossed $306 million. And it actually set, I had to write this down, it set a 1 week record of $17,393,654 from 12/26 to January 1st, which I think is funny because now that's nothing. But
Right.
remember,
What does that mean?
movies cost $1.25 back then. So imagine if they cost $15
If
like
they
it does
did it
now.
nowadays, yeah. If you did it nowadays, people would be just so focused on the visuals instead of making the movie work.
Yeah. Well, you know what I love about that movie, as we mentioned before, is like, you talk about what the deep have a slow burn. Now, this movie really has a slow burn. It just builds and
Perfect kind of
builds and
slow burn.
builds
Yeah.
and builds. And for people who have never seen it, you got to check it out. But it's about this guy. His name is Roy Neri. He's played by Richard Dreyfuss. He sees a UFO. He becomes obsessed, and he's wonders, like, keeps on seeing these images in his head. He's like, "What's going on? I don't know." He thinks he's losing his mind. And there's one scene where he just goes crazy, takes the neighbor's chicken wire, dirt.
Yes, he does. Yeah.
And so while he's making this mountain, he has no idea what it is. On the TV, he sees Devil's Tower in Wyoming, and he's like, "Wait a minute!"
Yeah.
So basically, he and there's another character, Jillian Geiler, who was played by Melinda Dillon, who just recently died, unfortunately. But
Yes.
they make, yeah, but so they make the trek over to Devil, and they have no idea why they're being summoned there. And so the aliens were telling him, like, that this is where we're going to be. We want you to be there. So it's just,
we never looked at potatoes the same way again.
Yeah, exactly.
How could we? That's just like, what? Well, I guess that makes sense.
I know. Well, he saw it in the potato, he saw it in the shaving cream, he saw it in his pillow, he saw it in the. Remember when Barry was making
the clues together?
Yeah, but it's such a. It's funny. It's like I don't know if a movie like that would do as well today because it's not, all of a sudden it's not like War of the Worlds where
we're not as patient.
Destroyed. Yeah,
it seems like people only want a slow burn if it's just like a really well thought out revenge or psychological drama, and then we have all this other material too that makes us wonder if it could work, but there's still going to be a crowd that just gets agitated or wants more boobs and explosions.
Yeah. Which is funny because, like, at 9 years old, I love it.
That's all we had.
I can't remember how many times I've seen it, and part of it was because my father kept taking us, but I'd wanted to go. I loved the movie. I was never bored, and maybe at the time I didn't understand everything completely, but I understood it enough.
It got your attention.
Yeah, it got my attention, and
it moved you.
Yeah, and it's funny because, like, Spielberg was just coming off of Jaws. He was 27 years old, and this was like the UFOs were saying he always wanted to make a movie. Like, one of his first movies that he made with his 8mm, or not even, what's it? His video camera was I can't remember the name. It was like Watch the Skies, it was called. So he always wanted to make a big version of that, and he wrote the novel. And in the novel, the character Roy Neri was this older guy, and Richard Dreyfuss was like, "Oh my God, I love this! I want to be in the movie." So he rewrote the whole character to make it a younger guy, so Richard Dreyfuss could be in the movie.
Wow.
And it's funny. Who he originally wanted, which I don't think
I've actually never heard about the original casting. So
right. Well, the original cast, and it's well documented, because Spielberg says he wanted Steve McQueen. And Steve McQueen goes, he uses like this. He goes, they went to a bar and he's trying to keep up drinking. He goes, every time he had every fourth beer, I'd be drinking one beer, just trying to keep up with him. And he goes, I love the script. He goes, but I just can't cry in camera. And Spielberg goes, I'll change it. He goes, no, don't change a thing. I love it, but it's just not for me. So then that's when Richard Dreyfuss says, please, I want this. So, but he went, you mentioned Bob Balaban, who's a great actor.
Yeah, I just saw he was the author of that book.
Yeah.
That's cool.
Yeah, he plays the interpreter in the movie. He's a cartographer, a map maker, and he's the one that puts everything together. But I love this story. And when he tried out for the French interpreter, the only thing he knew of French was something that he remembered from high school. And he did that for the audition. And Spielberg goes, all right, we love it. You're hired. And he goes, shit, I don't know any other French. And he didn't tell Spielberg that. And so it was until after. And Spielberg, they had an interview with Spielberg after I was reading the making of it. And Spielberg said, you know what? I love what Bob did. He goes, lie, do whatever you can to get your foot in the door, and then admit the truth later. Don't worry about it. So
there you go.
I encourage my actors to lie. Because he wouldn't have gotten, if he told the truth, he never would have gotten a role.
Yeah, you got to do what you got to do. That's wild how Spielberg encouraged him.
Yeah, no, exactly. And then the Jillian Guyler's small son, Barry Guyler, was played by Kerry Guffey. He happened to be the casting director. He was in the same class as her nephew. And she happened to be there. She goes, oh my God, you're perfect for this movie. So imagine just like being in school, nursery school. You want to be in a major motion picture?
It's just eye-opening too, because this is back when if you weren't like the last 5 grossing movies, you pretty much had to find other ways to just stand out.
Yeah. Well, you know, what's funny? Like, I mean, one of Spielberg's heroes is Francois Truffaut, and he was able to get him to play Claude Lacombe, who was the one who was sort of in charge of the whole getting the aliens to meet at Devil's Tower. Like, I'm not sure in the last time you saw this movie, but
it's been a minute, but I do love it legit. I do think it's just very well thought out, and even just anytime I see a reference to it, I instantly know, oh, it's a Close Encounters moment.
Oh yeah. Well, you know what's great is, like, as I mentioned, the special effects are out of this world. And Douglas, was it? Oh my God, Douglas. Well, Carlo Rambaldi, who did King Kong, the 1976 version.
Yes, he did.
He brought him in to make the alien, but Douglas Trumbull did all the special effects with the Devil's Tower and the mothership and even the smaller ships.
Rest in peace.
Yeah, but they so there's a couple things that sort of made me angry with what Spielberg said later, because like in the movie we talked about, like, he doesn't really lose his mind. He doesn't know he thinks he's losing his mind, but he's just basically being summoned by the aliens. And Spielberg said, well, if I wrote the movie now, I would never have a man leaving his family. It's like, it's a movie. And I thought it was a great story because, like, was he going to take his whole family? I mean,
I think that's just it. He had just become a dad, so he thought about it differently.
Yeah, no, that's exactly what happened. Similar to what he did with E.T., where there's a scene where they're
the special edition has the cops replace their guns with flashlights, making them look more like Rent-A-Cop security guards.
Yeah, so to me, I don't like that. As I just keep it the way it is. I like the way it is, and nobody's offended by that. And we understand as you get older, you mature, you change the way you think.
You would do it differently. I mean, that's why you do sequels or even just movies with a similar theme. You can just do it differently.
Well, you know what's funny about sequels? I want to talk about that because this is a hilarious story. The movie was rushed because there was so much things that were going on weather-wise.
He never had a movie set that wasn't heated back in the day, and he just always seems to coast through these disasters.
Yeah. Well, what happened was, he says, he sort of forced release by, like I said, November 16th. They wanted the movie out by Christmas. So he was, all right. So they said, well, I want to redo some of the scenes, and I want to make it the way it was supposed to be. And they said, the only way we'll redo it is if you show the inside of the ship. He goes, I don't want to show the inside of the ship.
I remember that. Yeah, I did see that interview, and that's why the special edition varies. Is like basically you have the suspenseful version and the show you the cream of the crop version. Pick your own version of what you want to see.
Well, you know what's funny? There's actually 3 versions of the film, because
it's like a TV edit, I think.
Well, no, one. There's then 4 of them, because I have the DVD of all 3 versions. I don't have the TV version, but the one is the original. The second is the special edition where they show the inside of the ship, and the third one is the director's cut where he took how he wanted the film to actually be. Because he goes, I want the film. I want it to be mysterious. He goes, people's imagination is much better and can see much more, instead of like me showing them what the inside of the ship looks like. I want them to look up and say, I wonder what that looks like, and then they just imagine it. And I love the way he originally did that. But and it's funny, I didn't even pick this for this reason, but I remember my mother taking my brothers and I to the drive-in to go see The Deep and Close Encounters. and we thought Close Encounters was a sequel. It was like,
Yeah.
and my Austin, we're watching. All I remember, my mother go, "This isn't a sequel," and my brothers and I are laughing now. We're like, "How could they not think? How would they think it's a sequel? It's only been like less than a year later." But we were all young, and that really wasn't the special editions weren't really a thing back then. He was like one of the first people to actually do that. So we're like, this is weird. This is a different movie, or it's the same movie. So I remember going to the drive-in, so we watched it again for probably the 15th time.
And do you think it and ET are in the same universe in your mind?
I like Close Encounters better, but I love ET. Like, I think that
It's all good.
yeah, and I feel bad for. Well, this goes for with ET. One of my, which we talked about, I think on your show. John Carpenter's Thing is one of my all-time favorite movies, and it unfortunately came out the same year as ET, which I think is stupid because why can't you have Good Alien, Bad Alien? They're both great movies. Why can't you like?
You can have both. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. I remember I love both of those, and which was weird for my father because my father's the one movie that scared the shit out of him was the original Thing with James Arness, and so I thought he would never like John Carpenter's The Thing, and he loved it. So I remember seeing that one like I don't know how many times at the drive-in.
Oh, that's wild.
Yeah, but Close Encounters I just thought was very original, very imaginative. The special effects were, I mean, there's still I think you and I talked about earlier. Some movies are just timeless. Some people's look aged, and you could tell, like, oh boy, you could tell this is a 1970s movie. This movie, you could play it today, and people go, wow, when was this released? Because you really can't tell because it still looks very fresh today. I saw it recently, and it's just it's a movie that I can, as you can see from all the different things I have of it, a movie I can never get sick of.
Absolutely. There's just some movies that they just remind you of why you're human, even.
Yeah.
What you value in life.
Now you mentioned, are you a filmmaker?
I used to do some independent film. I still help out some of my other buddies. I just had to take some breaks, because even before COVID, I was just encountering so many time wasters. But I'm working on some audio dramas now, and I just got to write out some more of them and figure out who's going to do what voice.
Oh, very well. It's funny. I'm not sure if you noticed about me. This whole show started from another radio show I do called Nutmeg Junction, where it pays homage to all the radio serials of the 50s.
Oh, lovely.
And so I do different voices. I was supposed to do one Tuesday, but I'm not sure. I think I'm going to be in Cape Cod visiting my parents. I'm going to have to set another date to do it. But yes,
I get there.
The show that show is in New Zealand, Australia, all over the U.S. So I mean, it's on smaller AM stations, but still we're all over the world. I love it. So yeah, if you're ever looking for somebody and need a voice, I would be more than happy to do it.
Okay, sure. I'll put you down, man.
Yeah, definitely. Please. I love doing stuff like that. I have so much fun doing the different voices and I love original content. So I didn't realize that you were doing that. That's awesome.
Yeah, man. There's so many storytellers out there. It's ridiculous. People got to just embrace it.
No, exactly. And I think that most people, well, I shouldn't say most people, but people just like take the easy way and like, oh, let me just do something that was already been done, or let me just I like seeing something that's original, not done before. And I know there's pretty much everything has been done, but there's a way to make things original.
So many different ways.
So let's give you a little bit of plugs for my viewers that don't know who you are. Where can they find some of your movies? Where can they find some of your audio?
Yeah, Jacked Up Review Show is on Spotify, Podbean, and Anchor, and more. And we just do all kinds of different, just pop culture dissects, whether it's a movie franchise ranking, whether it's a TV show summary, or even a music band retrospect. We want to just give some praise to all kinds of stuff, whether it's mainstream or cult.
Yeah. What are some of the movies you've done?
We've done a few different franchises. We've covered works by the likes of David Cronenberg, Paul Verhoeven, and obviously plenty of the other guys. We're thinking of starting up and maybe doing some different movies and shows, but picking a theme. Like, here's some legal dramas starring Denzel Washington. Here we just did a fun crossover with another Aussie podcast where we were like, hey, let's do a double feature of like 2 movies about the dangers of TV starring Jim Carrey. I'm sure you know those.
Oh, yeah.
We'll do also some theme trilogies. Like here are four demonic possession movies by William Friedkin. Here are some free body horror movies that are kind of an unofficial theme trilogy by this filmmaker. You want to always give some kind of fun retrospect and just show why this is the signature of this particular filmmaker's career.
I have to say, probably one of William Friedkin's favorite movies of mine is Bug. I love that
Yeah,
movie.
I promise you, we will talk that one.
That is such an intense movie. And Michael Shannon, that's when I realized, I said, I don't know who this guy is at the time. Now I know who he is. Anything he does, like
Right?
I watched The Shelter recently because I said, oh, he's in this movie. I don't know if you saw that one.
Yeah, Get Shelter. Yeah.
Yeah, it takes, yeah. So I watched it. So it's just anything that he's in now. And it was all came from Bug. He and Ashley Judd, which she was phenomenal as well.
She was great. Yeah.
And so, yeah,
Couldn't
but
believe it.
and what was the other one? Was it To Live and Die in LA? He did that one too, right?
Yep.
Yep.
Yeah.
That's another good one. Yeah, we
Yes.
definitely. If you already done, I know you and I were talking about doing. Well, I mean, even if you did it on your show, we could do it on my show. We could do like a William Friedkin night. Like,
Yeah, absolutely, man. I'd love to revisit him again, and just in general, just kind of some when we analyze their work, we do want to kind of just do more than just a run by
oh yeah.
of each scene. We want to also just say, how should you see this movie? Should you stream it? Should you do a mild rental? Should you get the original Criterion DVD or Blu-ray?
Oh yeah.
Should you set up your own projector? Should you go see a screening of it for the best impact? We always like to kind of give a little technical merit instead of just, is it streaming? It's like, well, no, that's irrelevant. Like, if you're a fan, you're going to find it wherever you can.
Yep. But I'm glad you mentioned that because I get so angry with people and say like, oh, movie theaters are a thing in the past. I like streaming. Like, no way. I love the theatrical experience. I love seeing it on a huge screen when people that are enjoying it as well, and it's like a big.
It brings you to life.
Yeah, and I love the popcorn, just everything about the theater, the sound. Like I saw Oppenheimer in IMAX. Bam! It blew me away. The music.
Yeah.
There's no way you're gonna get that kind of effect watching a movie on your phone. I'm sorry.
No. And you got to also just set your standards. Like, how big a fan are you of this filmmaker? If it's a spectacle, that's where it deserves to be seen in theater. And then there's other ones where, okay, maybe the movie's not all that, but make sure you're like, I saw the newest Mission Impossible. I didn't think it was really all that, but we decided, hey, how about we just just see it with a crowd that kind of likes kind of crazy action movies. So you do that too, and that makes a difference.
Yeah, well, I can tell you, it's like I saw all the Evil Deads in the theater when they first came out. Like I don't know how.
Oh wow.
Yeah, so but watching I don't know if I talked about this with you, but I loved Evil Dead. Evil Dead 2 was great, and then when I saw Army of Darkness, I'm like, something. But then years later, they have where I live in Connecticut, they have this thing called Insomnia Theater. So they show movies at midnight.
Lovely.
And they had, but when you had everybody in the audience reciting lines like groovy or like this is my boomstick, and it's like I had a much better appreciation because I think like when I was younger, it's like this is. I mean, you started to get kind of with the humor.
You get sick of certain things, yeah.
A little more slapstick, but yeah, it was like really slapstick in Army of Darkness.
It doesn't help that there's like 6 years in between each movie.
Yeah, but I had so much a better appreciation seeing it with a crowd, seeing it and everybody screaming the lines. We're having a great time. I mean,
I'm the guy with the gun.
First you want to kiss me, now you want to kill me. Yeah, this movie's got. I'm a huge Bruce Campbell fan. I think that I told you my Bruce Campbell story, right?
I know. I'd love to hear.
All right, I'll send you the pictures too. It's hilarious. This was 1990, and I remember it so clear because he was there promoting Army of Darkness. He's in New York, Fangoria Theater. My friends and I were staying the whole weekend. So it was around 2:00 in the morning. We're all drinking. The elevator opens up. Out walks Linnea Quigley, Gunnar Hansen, Bruce Campbell.
Oh my God.
So I said, Bruce, how's it going? He's like, hey. So Linnea Quigley put to Rich, I think you're sexy. Love Linnea. So then Bruce goes, give me that. He goes to Rich, I think you're sexy too. Love Ash. He's just a cool guy. So
that's great.
I said, Bruce, man, are there any parties around here? It's like the bars are closing. Go on the 10th floor. I said, Really? Just go on the 10th floor. Tell them you know me. They'll let you. And I got clout here. So all right. So my friends and I go on the 10th floor. There's nothing on that floor but janitor closets. So the next day I saw him walking around the lobby. I say, hey, Bruce, thanks a lot for the party. So he had his wife or his girlfriend with him. He goes, honey, that's the asshole I was talking about last night. So I got a picture where I'm choking him, and I'll show you the picture too. I have on my shirt. He goes, to Rich, see you at the party. Love, Ash. He is exactly what Ash is. Like
what he advertises.
Yeah, the character. He's got such a great sense. And you know what I love about him? Just like Reggie, he embraces his fans. He knows that people are there for him, and he definitely plays it up. Has a great time, talks to everybody. And it's great. Yeah, because
I've heard good things, and I've seen interviews with him. I like how he's also straight up. I'm not going to do your shitty action movie.
Yeah,
shitty horror movie. Sorry, it needs a budget.
Yeah,
and I can't blame him for being picky. Like he's one of those. Like he could say a politically incorrect thing, and I'd be like, yeah, that checks out. You know, he can do what he wants to do because he's.
Yeah, I mean, he can really act, and I'm sure you remember the TV show, The Adventures of Briscoe County Jr. That was a great TV show.
He did say he's interested in developing a second season of that, and I really do hope he follows up with it because he deserves it.
Well, you know what I love is I knew it was going to be okay, but I didn't think it was going to be this good. It was Ash versus Evil Dead. That was phenomenal. I was extremely happy with that one because I said,
Stars gave such a BS excuse for canceling it. It's like, what is up with you guys?
Surprised by that because it was like 3 seasons.
It gave them plenty of reasonable ratings. Just so dumb.
I have no idea. Like whatever platform it's on, I bought it just for that.
Our show got pirated. Well, that just means people really, really like it, and you're doing something right.
I know that's just a lame excuse.
You can't see. I mean, Game of Thrones was pirated. You didn't see HBO canceling it.
No, exactly. I mean, look what's happening with Netflix. In the beginning, Netflix, they knew where they were being, or people were just using the same password and username, and they said they didn't really care. But now there's a lot of competition because everybody has a streaming service now. So they're like, all right, we're going to get straighter. We're going to get a little bit stronger with the restrictions. And I don't blame them in a way. Because at first, they didn't care if they lost money because they were gaining so many new customers. They were the only show in town. Now everybody has a streaming service. So I mean, that's just
everybody.
Yeah. So that's just a lame excuse to say, you know what, we just don't really feel like doing another season. But
in all fairness, I think the reason it works so well is if you look real closely, literally every season is like a tribute to each installment in the trilogy. Like season 1 is a total like, let's experiment with more practical gore. Like the first one, part 2, they tell you exactly what happened in the house of Evil Dead 2, and then part 3, literally like Army of Darkness, where it's Ash versus the world and all of hell.
Yeah, and you know what's funny? Did you see the latest movie?
I need to. I can't wait. What was your thought? It was really fun.
I liked it. Yeah, and people were like going, "Oh my god, this is an Evil Dead." I thought it was great, and there's actually a cameo. I'm not going to tell you right now. There's a cameo by Bruce Campbell. It was funny because I was waiting for it.
I mean, he was in the remake / reboot. So.
Oh yeah, and that actually wasn't too bad either. I was surprised that it wasn't Evil Dead. Didn't have the charisma. Bruce didn't have it's just something. It was a good.
It doesn't need to,
Yeah. But this one was maybe because I went in there with such low expectations. I was really impressed with how they did it. I loved it, and I definitely want to see it again. I think I'm curious when you see this. You know what we should do? That should be another show. We should do the Evil Dead, like all the Evil Deads, the original Sam Raimi versions, the remake.
Yeah, let me know when you want to do that. I'll rewatch the remake and see this new one, and I'll get ready to rank them.
I know.
I'm overdue anyway. I've just been getting my life back together post insomnia. Here's something I recommend. Everyone, check out the Muse headband. It'll help you with your concentration and focus and help lull you back to sleep. Also, if you're just having a tough night.
Wait, what is
medication? Muse headband, like musings, MUSE.
I have to check that. I never even heard of it. So that really helps you out.
If it's too pricey for you, just do an installment plan, like in four parts. Totally worth it.
It's funny. I'm on the melatonin diet. I've been on the melatonin diet for like.
I used to too. It's just I grew out of it somehow. Like I just stopped working one day. Then I got to Delta 8 and that increased my anxiety, even though it was
Oh
so tasty. Those gummies, man.
man.
You're
Oh,
practically getting high, but I'm just then it got to I was trying other stuff and it would just vary each night. And then I just said, I'm not gonna keep doing this. I need my sleep.
well, it's funny that you mentioned like melatonin network because I went from started with one pill, 3 milligrams, to now I'm up to 40 milligrams.
Oh man.
Yeah, so
Yeah.
it's that definitely have to stop because like my body becomes acclimated with it, and then like all right, we'll have to increase. So I can't keep doing that, but yeah, so it's getting to the point where because I have to take it like about an hour before I get to bed because I'll be up all night. Like even last night, I got home from Oppenheimer around 10:30 at night. It's like,
Cutting it
I gotta get up.
close.
I have to get up at 4:30 in the morning to go to the gym. It's like so it just I took it right away and hope for the
Yeah.
best. So
That's the other thing too. People think it's just take the pill, but it's also consistency. And if you
yeah,
don't have any consistency, and if you're not, I had to get back into just doing some walks and swimming, but that's good too. Just vent your body, do some kind of exercise, even if it's just light.
oh yeah, no, I have three trainers that I work out with 3 times a
Oh,
week. So I definitely in the last year I lost over 55 pounds. So definitely what
look
it's
at you go.
I feel so much. If you watch some of the old interviews, you're gonna laugh because the guy that edits this, his name is Rob Bull. Great guy. Rob, if you watch the show, thank you very much for all you do. But he puts it on Spotify, iTunes, Patreon Radio, all that stuff. And but he goes, "Oh my God, I was watching the old interviews. Wow, what a transformation!" I started laughing because I forget about it because I've been like this for maybe like close to a year now. But it's funny like when
Hey,
I
anything
look
you can do
back.
to evolve, man, that
Oh yeah,
just
no,
makes your
exactly.
body feel better. Whether it's,
Yeah.
I recommend also electrolyte sprays. They can help you with muscle cramps. So
Okay.
let's say you just turned your neck a little sideways in bed and it's just annoying the shit out of you.
All right. See, the show has everything for everybody. Movies,
There you
health.
go.
I love it. Nutrition expert Cam Sully over here.
I wish I am going to review a few more of those people just because it's just calming. It
Yeah.
it beats. I interview all other kinds of crazy B movie celebs, even just other people who are martial artists or even adult film stars. It's just always fun to just get a different world and have it explained to someone who can't otherwise understand it, comprehend it,
No, see, I
live it.
love that. I actually said the same thing about my show. I love talking. Somebody goes, "Who do you have in your show? Is it anybody that's interesting?" I don't care. It's like they could. I don't care what you. And
If
it's
they
funny.
can fill a room, that's even just as good as a TED talk.
Yeah. No, exactly. And I love talking to people. I mean, I've had spelunkers, cave
I've
explorers,
loved having you
show
on. I
writers.
love having anyone who wants to just book a guest.
Yeah.
Ask your friend, ask his neighbor, ask your sibling's friend who you have something in common with, and just get them up. Go do
Yep.
it.
Yep. So how long have you been doing your show?
Since fall of 2019, so we did it just as COVID just fucked us over, and
Uh,
we just stuck with it because I just saw the increase in just creativity. People were leaving YouTube and doing just more different stuff. I still am at awe of how there's a community for everybody there. If you don't even listen to a podcast, you're probably on Twitch, you're probably on TikTok. There is something for your audience that will get you up in the morning and give you a chuckle,
yeah.
make you blow your mind, and make you learn something.
Yep. Well, it's funny you say because I've started the show right around the same time, and actually, COVID helped me out because I was doing it at a radio station, and I could only do the show if the guest was in the studio. I couldn't do any phone interviews.
Ah,
No,
man.
but it worked out perfect because Jon, another great guy, Jon Bristol of Elmwood Productions. Check out him. He makes horror movies, comedies, dramas, all with puppets. But he was my
I gotta
last
see
guest.
this guy.
Yeah, it's great. You got to check out Elmwood Productions. He was my last guest of 2020 in March. No, sorry, February. And then we did the show, and he realized, just like me and you were talking, he goes, "We got to do a movie show. This is how this show started." He goes, "Let's do a show on YouTube, and we'll do it." Like if you ever watch Reel Talk, some of the other ones, the guy who I co-host with. So I said, "All right," and then bam, COVID hit. So he goes, "Well, why don't you continue doing your other show? I'll edit that too." I said, "All right,
Sure.
thank you." And then because of that, I was able to get all these other guests that like
Keep those connections close.
Exactly. So so once again, John, I'm extremely appreciative of everything you've done for the show, and I appreciate. But
Thanks,
yeah, so
Jon.
it all helped. Everything just fell, as I mentioned before. So I have the great luck, but I also take advantage and make the most out of every door that opens for me. I'm not gonna just be like, oh, okay, I guess it's like you said, like if they wait too long to do this and
Maybe,
just
yeah.
make excuses why they don't want to do it. Nope, just get off your ass and do it.
Have fun with it.
Yeah, which I have been. I've met so many great people. And the best thing is, I'm just using this as an example from the movies I'm thinking of. Some of my best movies growing up were Jaws, um, Jesus Christ Superstar, The Warriors, Phantasm, and I'm trying to think of the other one. But I've interviewed people from all of those movies, and the best part is I've able to they are the nicest people, and I've actually become friends with them. Like I said, the guy from the Warriors invited me down to New York to hang out in his acting studio. The other one was, oh yeah, we'll see my band play. So I love the fact that, what was that?
It was a trading of favors, kind of.
Yeah, yeah, because they're appreciative
No
that people
strings
still want to
attached.
hear their story, and I'm appreciative just for them to be on the show telling your story, and it's been so much
Eye
fun.
opening too.
Yeah, yeah. That's why I mean, there's so many horrible things to say about social media, and I'm with those people. But social media also
Oh,
opened up
we all
a lot of
are.
different things. If you use it for the right things, you can get a lot out of it.
Absolutely. Anytime I see people doing a hot take, I'm like, out. I'm going downstairs now.
Yep.
Turning off the laptop in 5, 4, 3.
The only thing I'm
Value
mad
your time. Value it.
about, oh, definitely,
You only get one life to fuck around.
exactly. See, I love that attitude. Well, do you have anything that you want to talk about with Close Encounters? We're getting back to that movie.
Uh, it just if anyone, there's apparently the Blu-ray I think has all free versions. So if anyone wants to check out that, I recommend that. If anyone wants to get introduced to it, if you're there's a lot of local cinemas that have been showing remastered movies from earlier periods. If you get an invite, or if you somehow have not seen it or want to introduce it to someone, it's probably one of the easier movies that you can get someone interested in, even if they're not keen on stuff from an earlier period. Just
Yeah. Well,
wing it.
what I love about that is now they're having the 35th anniversary, the 40th anniversary. So now
Oh yeah,
re-releasing. It's not too long ago, a couple years ago, I saw Close Encounters in the theater. I forgot it was what was 77. So whatever it was, 5 years ago, I saw the whatever anniversary that was, and then Shining just had an anniversary because it came out in 19. So I mean, there's so many. I love the fact that they're doing that because it's introducing the audience to. I mean, newer audiences to these movies that maybe they heard of but never saw. And
I call it the Mystery Science Theater effect. It used to be it was frowned upon if you talked shit during a movie, but
yeah,
now people kind of know about, with Joe Bob and Elvira, everyone's seen some variation of a crazy 2 a.m. midnight movie that you watch with pals and you have a chuckle and a drink over. And, it seems like we're just slowly same deal with these movies, just making them be part of your, just like classic rock music, and metal. It goes in stages, but you can still appreciate an earlier period, and instead of just browsing through a Wikipedia page saying I know everything. No, you got to experience it still. Like if you go to a Dawn of the Dead screening, that it's going to be the ultimate party movie. It's going to because much like you said with Evil Dead earlier, people will be recycling dialogue from it. They know it inch by inch. Monty Python and Holy Grail or Life of Brian, same kind of deal. You'll be in it to win it. You will want to conquer the movie together with pals because you appreciate what the filmmakers made and you love just every frame, every scene.
Well, it's funny you said that about the movies, and there's a line from Robin Williams in Good Will Hunting, and I love this.
Oh yeah,
You probably know what I'm talking about. Where he goes like this: "You could tell me who painted this. You could tell me what this, but can you tell me how the Sistine Chapel smells? Can you tell me what it was like? Because you know everything because you read it in a book. You didn't live it. You weren't there. And so it's the same thing with the movies. Yeah, you can read anything you want in Wikipedia. I can give you every fact about this movie, but until you actually sit in a theater, popcorn, soda, however you like the movie, watch it, and then you
A
experience it for
movie
yourself.
that makes me wish that that was a real professor.
Oh my God, he was the best. And the funny thing was is that he made up most of those lines on his own. Like I'm sure you remember the scene where he was talking about his wife, and she accidentally
Yeah, didn't
cried
he
so loud.
improvise that tragic moment?
Yeah, and you see Matt Damon trying not to laugh.
Oh, damn.
Because they said I had no idea where he was going with this story. And then he's telling me like, yeah, she was so loud, I had to blame the dog. She woke herself up. I didn't have the heart to tell her. uh, but what made me, I love that line because it's so true. And since we're talking about movies, like just because you read something and know all the facts, if you don't live it and experience it, it's still not the same as knowing it.
Absolutely. You have to embrace it. You have to live it, not just say, I think I know everything. That's just as
Yeah.
bad as skipping out during history class.
Oh, exactly. And that's why I'm so glad I'm at least the age I am, because I got to grow up all these movies that we're talking about. I got to grow up and actually see firsthand. But the good thing is, for people who are younger, can go back and, like you said, they're re-releasing them in theaters, or you can get it on Blu-ray and just have your own little party.
I guffawed when you mentioned Robin Williams cracking Matt Damon up. Did you ever hear the story? It was like Pierce Brosnan. He was promoting one of his newer spy movies on Conan, and he talked about how Robin Williams had unfortunately passed around that time. I think
Yep.
2014. I think.
Yeah,
Yeah.
2014.
Yeah. So there you go. And so he asked him to speak about him, and he had hysterical stories about working with him on the set of uh, Miss Doubtfire, and his like half the time is like in between takes they'd have to send the kids into another room. They're like, oh, careful, Robin's gonna get naughty here.
That's
And so next thing you know is like they're practicing and staging a scene, but Robin just can't help himself. It reminds me of how the Birdcage, there's several moments where the camera is shaking for no reason, and that's because the cinematographers are just trying to not guffaw to death.
yeah. No, you know what's funny? I was speaking of people that improv. I was talking. You might have heard it on with Sarah Karloff, but also I was talking to Victoria Price, who was Vincent Price's daughter, and she was talking about how
Really?
Boris Karloff hated to improvise.
Uh,
Yeah, and Peter Lorre loved to improvise. Vincent Price was somewhere in the middle. So Boris Karloff was like very serious, very like I want to say Shakespearean, but he was more like, very educated and liked to go. So Peter Lorre would come on, he'd get so angry and tell the director, "You have to stop this guy." So Vincent, according to Victoria Price, Victoria said that her father said, "You know what? You do a little bit of this, you do a little bit of that." And he was sort of like calming them both down. And he goes, after a while, Boris Karloff started to improvise a little bit, and Peter Lorre went more with the script. So the reason I bring that up is like, I can only imagine like being an actor on the set, and they're like, some guy comes out and you have your lines ready, and all of a sudden Robin Williams comes out like, what the hell am I going to react to this?
What is going on here?
You just relax and have fun. I used to do improv. If you relax and have fun with it, just say whatever you're thinking. Don't actually.
Improv is amazing.
How they teach you is don't think. Just the first thing that comes out of your mouth, just say. Or I mean, the first thing that you
let it out
in your head. Yeah. And I used to do stand-up comedy, and that helped me a lot with stand-up comedy, learning that.
Did you really love doing stand-up?
Yeah, I did. Because the one good thing of me is I can give a shit less what anybody thinks about me. So I mean, I got booed before I got the more, and actually I've had people say, "You like it more when people hate you." I said, "I think it's hilarious." I said, it doesn't really bother me at all.
Right. If you think this is the most offensive comedy, you haven't seen much bad comedy.
And I always say, it's like, who cares if they don't like me? What's the worst that's going to happen? It's not like I'm going to get off stage and drop dead. I'll go to a show tomorrow.
They're not going to shoot you or throw tomatoes. We're in a way better place than we used to be.
Exactly. So it never bothered me. And I don't know if I told you my history, but like over the years, I've been in bands, I've been in radio, I've done stand-up comedy, I wrote a book, I did motivational speaking. Now I'm doing the radio show / podcast. So I've done all these different things. And there's people that are going to love it, people that are going to hate it. So I just don't really care.
Inevitably, yeah. You're going to have people who just want to bitch slap someone, and you're like, you clearly weren't spanked much as a kid.
Well, it's funny that what I encountered over the years, the people that, and actually I had somebody say this to me, this maybe, most of the people are the ones that wish that they could do it, but they don't have the balls to do it, or they don't have the talent. And then one time I was in radio, and some guy goes, "You're just an overachiever," this and I said, "Whoa, where's this come from?" He goes, "All right, man, I'm just jealous because anything you go for, you usually get, and I wish I could be like you." I was like, aha. So that's why sometimes when people are hating on you, it's more because they wish they could be doing it. And I always think about that. I'm like, that's why it's never really bothers me. It's like, whatever. It's like, somebody goes, oh, I
I'm
could do
sorry you're
that.
bothered.
What? No, I said, well, he was like, oh, I could do that. So I said, well, then do it. Shut up and get your own show. Well, that's easy. Yeah. So that's why I found comedy funny, because like so many people were. Well, it's funny because everybody's like, how come you're always in a good mood? I said, what do you mean?
Why wouldn't you want to be?
Well, no, I said, I'm having fun. And they said, you're having fun doing comedy? And I said, well, what do you do comedy for? They thought they were going to get up there at an open mic and do like, get a 5 special Comedy Central deal. It's like, no, that's not going to happen.
How this works. It may never happen. That doesn't mean you stop being funny. You can still, there's plenty of these other comedians who haven't had any live comedy in a while, but they're busy doing talk shows and other live stuff. So good for them. They're keeping their dream alive. They're getting rewarded.
I'll tell you one more story of how you make the most out of every opportunity. I went to visit my friend in Nashville, he and his wife, and we went to go see Jeff Ross, the Roastmaster General.
Oh, I love that man.
Yeah. All right, you're going to love this story then. So I was in the upper deck. All of a sudden he goes, I'm going to try something new. He goes, I'm going to bring people up on stage and roast them. So they're like, go. And I ran all the way, just made it on stage. So I have cerebral palsy. So,
oh, wow.
Guy, like my hand. So the guy, Jeff Ross goes, so, what do you say? He goes, so what do you do? I said, well, I told him what I do during the day. I said, I have a job during the day. I'm a stand-up comedian by night. And all of a sudden he goes, and I said something about, he goes, oh, stand-up comedian. He goes, I said, yeah, it's my big break. He goes, it looks like you already had your big break. He starts making fun of my hand. So we're laughing. Oh, no, it's great though. So then I hear people in the audience go, give him the mic. Give him the mic. Give him the mic. Started a chant. And it was Zany's huge comedy club.
They want you to fight back.
Yeah, no. This is what they're telling Jeff Ross to give me the mic. So Jeff Ross is like, when you have something funny to say, I'll get back to you. So he roasts everybody else on stage. He comes back. He goes, here you go. He let me do 15 minutes of stand up. Best time. I'm not even kidding. When I said the audience was screaming and cheering so loud, I couldn't even hear myself talk. They were going nuts. They loved it. It was so great. And so later on, he said, you know what? He goes, my friend's band is playing. He's talking to the audience. My friend's band is playing down the street. Everybody should go check them out. So we're like, yeah, let's go check it out. I walked in there. The band stops. Hey, not only is this a great guy, he's a great stand-up comedian. He brought me up on stage. When I got up on stage at the other club, Jeff Ross walks in. He goes, what the fuck? Everywhere I go, I see you. And so we started talking. He is such a cool guy and so down to earth. And it all goes back to, like I said, when you see the opportunity, just make the most out of it and go for it.
Totally. Don't wait for permission.
No, exactly. So like, when like with Bruce Campbell, with him, and like now Joey Pants. So,
I'm sure he's still sick of being called that, but who cares? He didn't call it anyway.
Yeah, no, he what's funny? He's another one that's like such a nice guy. And he's so talented. Like, I talked to him several times.
I've heard, yeah.
So I'm definitely looking forward to interview him, because he's another one. The longest show I've ever done was 5 hours. There's a singer from the Bad Brains, but I could probably talk to, like I always say, when people say, when's the interview end? I said, whenever we have nothing else to talk about. So sometimes people say, well, I got to go. But I remember the guy from the Bad Brains goes, I said, I got to go. He said, oh man, we got to do a part 2. So I did a part 2 with over 3 hours. So I've done over 8 hours of interviews with this guy, but so I mean,
it's worth it, because those are the stories you also remember, because it's not just, bleed out your guts to me. It's also, man, I'm not jealous of you. I wish I could do what you do, because you got reward from it. Yep.
Yeah. But it's for most part, because they could tell when somebody's really like I can send you some like promos to show you like what people are saying, and then they're like, sometimes I get these. This is what Ted Neely from Jesus Christ Superstar used. These interviews, and I don't want to badmouth anybody, but you can tell when they're just like not even into it. But like when I'm interviewing somebody, I'm really into it. I'm having a great time, and I'm really interested in what they're saying. So they love that, and so they feed off of me, and I'm feeding off of them. And then we'll just keep I remember like when I interviewed somebody, and he goes, holy shit, it's been 4.5 hours. I said, and I was wondering when I was getting hungry. Like he didn't realize that we were talking that long. And I love that.
It went by endlessly. Yeah,
definitely. And speaking of shows,
and you'll remember those experiences just like it was yesterday.
Yes, exactly. Exactly. Well, Cam, it's definitely great having you on the show. Speaking of
Anytime,
shows,
my dude. Thank you.
and I said I could probably talk another 3 hours. I love both these movies. I highly recommend that everybody check out The Deep, Close Encounters, and we're definitely going to have more shows with Cam Sully. We mentioned already we're going to be doing the William Friedkin Hour, the Evil Dead show.
Everything's all the dominoes are falling into place, man.
I love it.
Happen.
Oh yeah, I'm definitely looking forward to this. I have to do. I mean, I've
we're
seen all
bummed
these
by freaking passing away, but it's not going to stop us with what we want to do. Which is
no. I mean,
honor.
he left his legacy on the screen. So the best part is we can go back and remember him whenever we want. So
right?
he made so many great movies. You know what's funny? I want to talk about that a little bit. I'm sure you heard what he was like during The Exorcist, right? Oh, Ellen Burstyn. That's her name.
Yes.
Ellen Burstyn. She's going to be in the sequel to The Exorcist. Mm-hmm. But I'm not sure if you know like how he was in The Exorcist, because he's all about
very intense. Yeah.
So there was one scene where she was supposed to get
encouraging method acting. He'd slap someone if they were just misbehaving and just not getting it.
Well, no, the scene you're talking about is all right. So at the end of the movie,
I'm thinking of Jade. My bad. I remember he slapped an actress on the set of that, just saying, "Get going. Well, no, I need you in the zone."
Yeah, well, no, William Friedkin did slap somebody, and this is what happened because the scene where Father Karras gets thrown out the window or pushed out and falls, and the older priest is like looking at him, and he's like doing like the prayer over him, and so William Friedkin goes like, it just doesn't seem believable, and he goes, "Do you trust me?" He goes, "Do you trust me?" "Yeah, why?" So he said, bam, slapped him across the face real hard. And he goes, "No, go." And if you watch the scene again, you're gonna see the guy's hand going like this. It's shaking. He goes, he didn't know what the hell just happened. The guy is slipped. And then Ellen Burstyn, she says, "I hurt my back. Please don't pull me," because there's a scene where she gets thrown across the bedroom. And so William Friedkin said, "Give me that." So when she wasn't paying attention, he pulled her and yanked her across the room, yanked out her whole back. So I mean, they would never be able to get away with stuff like that. Right?
No,
but it did.
He intended himself well versus the other guys who you'll hear about people wanting to trip because they were such pricks, and he was just one of those. He could be an asshole, but he wasn't doing it to get off on it or anything. He's not like a Weinstein who would just make up rumors about people who wouldn't give him a blowjob.
No, exactly. He was just intense, and he wanted the best performance out of his actors, and he found.
I mean, he's actually filming the French Connection scene. He is in that car, ready to get in a car crash because he believed he had to be in the scene with the actor. And
I'm sure I saw the making of that too. Did you hear that? They were never told that they were filming that chase sequence.
Yeah,
they're driving through. Yeah, they were driving through, and people were actually running, like almost getting hit, trying to get out of the way of the car.
That's why I love raw movies like that in the original Terminator, where you're just like, see, I want to be just what's it called for when you're being a rebel and you're filming without
rogue
guerrilla filming.
Yeah.
I love it. And it can be done, but you can't do it for every part of the movie, but you can do it for X amounts. If it's like a private meeting or just down a street, just walk, go, make sure the street sign's not in. Boom, we got the shot.
Who's the one that directed the movie God Told Me to with Andy Kaufman? I forgot what his name is.
Oh, Larry Cohen.
Yes. Okay. So I saw a documentary on him, and there's lots of movies that he made. There's one in particular, I can't remember the name of it, but it starred Fred Williamson, which is a great actor. I love him. I met him too. He
is lovely. Yeah.
Yeah. But there's a movie that he did with Larry Cohen, and
Original Gangsters.
Yeah, and they're chasing through the airport with guns, but they didn't have a permit to do it, so they're like,
the original Black Caesar.
Yes, that's it. So
I love those movies.
And so he's doing it, and people are freaking out because they're like, but imagine if they did that scene now and like that, they would all be arrested for terrorism.
Right. And what you do when you're waving guns around? What the fuck?
Yeah, but you should see. He goes, and Fred Williamson said, "The people look terrified." He's good. That's what we want. So he was probably like one of the ultimate guerrilla filmmakers. He just did not care. He
didn't care if you took his movie seriously or the wrong way. It is exactly kind of like the Maniac Cop, Evil Dead, or Piranha effect. You can watch it straight face, or you can watch it with a campy moment in mind, and we're all in the same We all want the same thing. We're all getting the same thing.
I love the movies just been like even the remake of Piranha was great. I love that.
Yeah,
It was fun. It's just a fun movie. I mean, like
we need more
especially
fun. We
yeah,
need fun.
exactly. That's why people. I always hate when people say, "Well, it wasn't realistic." I'm like, "What do you go to the movies for? Escapism. You don't want to see reality all the time.
Even
You
the
go to the
most
movies to
plausible
escape reality."
movie is going to have a plot hole that would never happen in real life, or a moment where an actor breaks character and is still in the final scene. So what does realism even mean anymore? I mean, I see people even do it with TV shows. They'll see a Twilight Zone anthology or a Law and Order type show, and they're like, that's not how I would do it. I'm like, I'm sure it isn't. That's how they do it because they're rule breakers.
And I was gonna say, if you just like I said earlier, I said, well, then if you think you're so great, why don't you do something like that yourself? You don't have to, instead of putting everybody else down, say, well, let me
That's
show
why I
you
did
how
this
I would do it.
podcast. I did a podcast with two other pals, still good friends with them, and help them out with their projects. But it was one of those where I didn't like how it was being run.
Yep.
So I said, instead of me driving an hour and being pissed off, I'm going to do my own thing because I know how long this takes
Yep.
and what I'm going to focus on and everything. And I lose the right to bitch if I'm not willing to do a good chunk of it myself too. So
Yeah, no, exactly. And like if I ever complain about something, it's something that I didn't already do or wouldn't do. So yeah, I have the same mentality. It's like I'm not gonna sit there and judge. I actually have respect for people, like you just said, the guerrilla filmmakers or the people that go out and do what they want.
People have made millions doing their giant formula.
Yeah,
it's worked for them the last 20 years. Why wouldn't they keep doing it?
no, exactly. And that's actually
I'm not even doing it for money anymore.
I interviewed, speaking of Twilight Zone, that's one of my favorite shows still.
I'll put you down for that special. We'll do it soon.
Yeah, and I interviewed Ann Sterling, Rod Sterling's daughter. Yeah, she was a great interview. That's also found on the Claws Corner of my YouTube channel, or you can find it on Spotify, iTunes, iHeartRadio, Amazon Music, and Audible. Little plug there.
Whoop whoop.
So before we go, because I said I have to get.
Always delight talking to you, my dude.
Oh, yeah, I love. We're gonna be doing a lot more shows. This is like the second of many collaborations.
We're getting geared up. We've just been taking a break.
Exactly. Well, it's tough to find. Like usually, like I just got back from Bermuda. You're busy. Like we're always trying to find like.
Oh, Bermuda! You're gonna have to tell me about that.
Oh yeah, I had the best time in the world. I'll definitely talk to you about that. Where can people find you? And one more time to plug Cam Sully.
Yeah, Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, Anchor, Podbean, Spotify, just all various platforms. And if you want, chances are you're not going to like everything we talk about, but we have something for everybody. We have talked to all kinds of people. We've talked to some recent stuntmen and fitness instructors and indie filmmakers and scream queens. But we've also just talked about other stuff. We've done some themed months. We had some fun for doing Indigenous and Black History Month specials this year. There's something for everybody.
What's the name of the show?
Jacked Up Review Show.
Jacked Up Review Show, right? And for people, I'm sure you already know, my name is Rich Sear. You can find me on YouTube.
He's the richest.
Yeah. And I have several shows on there. I have the Claws Corner, which I do most of my interviews. I have Reel Talk, which I do with John Bristol and guests like Cam Sully. And I have another show that no longer exists because unfortunately my co-host died. It was a year ago next week. It's called the Local Artist Show. So there's something for everybody on that channel. Subscribe to it on YouTube.
Check out his interviews, guys. He gets into the nitty and gritty.
Oh yeah, thank you very much. I appreciate that. Then so you can check
easy
it out.
Questions.
iHeartRadio, not pay. I always keep saying Patreon. I'm not on that yet, but
we'll get there.
I mean, I like people. I'll have people watch it for free. If they want to pay for it, I'll put it on Patreon. But right now, you can find it on Amazon Music, Audible, iTunes, Spotify, YouTube, and I'm on several Connecticut local radio stations such as WAPJ, WHGD, WMLV. So you can find me around. And until then, I want to thank.
Rich is everywhere.
I try to be. I'm like, where's Waldo? Also, don't forget to go on Amazon and buy my book, Confessions of a Frenetic Mind. That's another thing you might want to check out.
Okay, sure.
So, first of all, got to thank the great editor extraordinaire, John Bristol, for always doing a great job editing the show and putting it together each and every week to make it available to all. I also need
books in the cart now.
Yep. And then, definitely check out Elmwood Productions. He has a great, he has his own channel. And he makes tons of, one of the movies that it's my audience would love. It's called Head. It's a takeoff of the Evil Dead movies. It's hilariously, but it's also scary too. It's all done with puppets. It's great. A bunch of kids go out in the woods, and just like Evil Dead, but they're definitely making, paying homage to all the greats. And also,
that's good.
Joseph Timothy Quirk and Rob Bull for making the show available on, as I mentioned, several connected radio stations, as well as Spotify, iTunes, Amazon Music, Audible, and iHeartRadio. And lastly, but definitely not least, I need to thank you, the viewer, for always tuning in. Enjoy your day, everyone.
Get classy. That's it, freaking.